there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Good evening and welcome to Beer Blather. Now, let me catch my breath, but I'll start anyway. Beer Blather 272. Sea change ongoing. Last week we discussed China and its unworthiness as a partner to the US in trade or in anything else. True to its nature, China has already defaulted on its compromises before the ink was dry. It went back on not quite so rare earths, fentanyl, and non-tariff barriers. Can't wait for the 90-day clock to run out and start the real repeal and replace of the China policy. And, for crying out loud, get our universities out of there and their students out of here. Alas, this week saw massive changes in the Middle East, Ukraine, and Russia policy. Good for the US, good for Israel and the Arab countries, good for Ukraine, and dismally bad for the Borscht Dwarf. A sea change on how the US does business. Nation builders, abstain. Let's get talking about it. This is Montes Bradley, the largest repository of useless information. Tonight, from Hardyville, South Carolina. God, can you believe it actually exists? Hardyville, South Carolina. I swear to God, I look at the window here. If God had to give the world an enema, that's where it would stick the hose into.
Is that a street light out there?
Yeah, there are several of those.
Oh, okay.
Because, unlike the third world, even in the shithole like this, you have street lights. And, hold on.
Yeah, you got all bright all of a sudden.
Oh, apparently if I move,
Yeah.
I get all bright. Let me see if I have... There is a lamp here from the hotel.
Oh, now your urine yellow. That's good.
I'm hepatic soul.
Yeah, just don't move. That's all you have to do.
I'll try not to. By the way, this over here is my good friend Thomas Victor, the only living expert in World War I flamethrowers from, oh God, the forgotten land of Mexifornia. Remind me, I need to ask you a question about that. And everybody, our audio, they're saying audio. Is the audio okay?
I can hear you fine. Are they saying, what are they saying about the audio?
Oh, they're saying audio. I have no idea what that means.
Get them to write more specifically what they mean.
Yeah, well, there we are. Sound is good, says Deb, so
okay,
that's fine. And Long with Feather, sounds like an Indian name. Please explain what you mean by audio. Okay, it's fine for everybody else. Good. I can't see anything. I've just drove over here from Southeast Florida. I spent the entire day in the car. My ass is, well, let me put it this way. I'm going to have to find a doctor to draw a new crack for me. Because it's gone. I buffed it off. And I don't know. It's already hot. It was like 98 to 102 degrees all along the route. And that means all of those 18-wheelers with fucking cheap Chinese tires are leaving road alligators all over the fucking place. And I felt like I was playing, avoid the alligator most of the day. And you're doing 80 miles an hour trying to avoid this debris on the road. It's not freaking funny. So my legs are hurting, my back is hurting, my ass is gone. you will forgive me if the yellowness that you see is also my liver getting upset today. Look at that. A question already. And I believe this is what you wanted to talk about. Let's see, where is it? I would like Beer Blather to make sense of Trump deals in the Middle East because I am confused about what these actually mean. Uh, you're not the only one, and we'll try. We discussed this yesterday with Thomas, and we're trying to make sense of it too. Hopefully, we'll help you and you'll help us.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I heard on the way over here, I heard Mark Levin on the radio, and he is confused.
Well, okay.
I think we have the answer, though.
Let's get specific. He made a deal with Qatar.
Yes.
He made a deal.
Mother of all confusions out there.
Oh. Well,
that's what Levin was confused about. And I believe that you and I have the answer for it, but
well, we're bringing
it's not there.
Okay, the Qataris have played both sides because the Qataris and the Saudis don't like each other, right?
Not one. Remember when the Saudis built the canal?
Yeah.
To separate the Qataris from the peninsula?
Right. So the Qataris are buddies with the Iranians in order to keep Saudi Arabia at bay, and the Qataris are buddies with us in order to keep the worst of the Iranians at bay. Most people don't know about this, but the Iranians are holding several Qatari royals hostage. This is one of the reasons the Qataris do what they do. So what Trump did is he brought the Qataris in from the embrace of the Iranians, which means the Qataris will no longer support terrorism. The Qataris will no longer support Hamas. The Qataris will no longer support Hezbollah, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there's people who they want retribution for what the Qataris did in the past. But all of our allies have done things in the past against us, including the UK, including France,
including Canada,
and basically every country in the world is in it for themselves. And I understand where Mark Levin is coming from. I understand where all Jewish people are coming from. But okay, Mark Levin said we should be bombing Qatar instead of making deals with them, but that's never going to happen. Why waste your time talking about stuff that's never going to happen?
And why do it if it is not strictly necessary? We may end up bombing Iran.
Well, what is
the need with Qatar? Let's rehash the Qatar thing a little bit, because a lot of people don't know much about it. Qatar has been the principal source of funds for Hamas, at one time for Al Qaeda. They gave refuge to Al Qaeda, Hamas, Hezbollah. They used Al Jazeera as a propaganda organization to promote jihadism and anti-Americanism for the better part of the past 20 years. They are the bankers of Iran. But all through these, we have Al Udeid Air Force in Qatar, 30 miles from Doha, which was instrumental in the invasion of Iraq. It was instrumental to support our troops in the Middle East. And that was also in Qatar. The Emir is pro-American and his brother is pro-Al-Qaeda. Riddle me that one.
Well, okay, the Saudis had the same problem, and then Mohammed bin Salman went in and essentially stripped the fortunes from everybody in the royal family who supported terrorism. Remember, there was some smooth-talking sheikh who was everybody's favorite buddy, and he ended up stuck in a hotel. And when he came out, he was penniless, and he said, "I don't support terrorism anymore."
No, but the thing is this: if Qatar is in a bad place, as you well said, the Saudis don't like him, the Iranians don't like him, but they have to deal with both,
mhm.
and it is a matter of survival, if you will. Sometimes that duplicity is the last recourse of the weak, because they have no army. They can be invaded by Iran in I don't know 5 hours, and by Saudi in two. Uh, so if they want to maintain their independence, they play both sides against each other and try to navigate the middle. One thing that surprised me in the deal with Qatar is that the U.S., as part of the deal, promises to defend Qatar's territorial integrity against all enemies.
Mhm.
That is a guarantee that now they can let go of Iran without fearing retaliation. And they
100%.
and they also got into a number of deals that would allow them to replace their relationship with Iran and still have a good life. If it works, I always quote Ronald Reagan: trust but verify. If it works, what Trump did was open the door for the Qataris, and the Qataris came in, with the white horses and dancing. Uh, 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 the I think it was in Dubai though. No, dancing and cheering, and brought the camels in, and now they tell everybody and their mothers that now they're gonna go against terrorism, and they have an alliance with the U.S. If it works, it saved us the cost of the bombs.
Well, also, okay, we've made the same deal with Ahmed Sarraj of Syria, the former
Exactly the same deal.
Al
Yes.
Jilani, and Trump met him. He shook his hand, and he lifted sanctions on Syria, and all of Syria erupted in celebration. They were
Yes.
they were carrying signs saying "Thank you, Trump." And Sarraj went back to Syria, and he gave a speech in which he thanked Trump. Now, there's people saying he's former Al Qaeda, he needs to be killed. Okay, my own personal opinion is that he's been a Saudi agent from the beginning, just because I've studied the guy, and he's done more damage to jihadism than he's done to expand the actual power of jihadism. But be that as it may, let's say he's a real former jihadi. We have too many people on our side who say things like they want to see Hillary Clinton in an orange jumpsuit. It's never going to happen. They say that Pam Bondi needs to be replaced because she hasn't published all the Epstein documents, and we haven't seen billionaires in orange jumpsuits. It's never going to happen.
And frankly, I don't give a rat's ass.
No, it's if okay, Trump has said basically the ball is in Syria's court.
Yep.
The Syrians have cracked down on the jihadis who were attacking Christians and Druze.
Which they were.
They were, and al-Sarraj wants to be part of the Abraham Accords to recognize Israel. Israel has said, you're going to have to do a lot more than just make promises, and I think that's perfectly fair.
And in the meantime, the Israelis are virtually occupying a portion of Syria, protecting the Druze, and nobody has attacked them yet.
Nobody's attacked them. Sarraj has said that the greatest source of terror and murder in the Middle East are the Iranian mullahs, and he's not fighting. Okay, the Turks are helping in the north.
And he warned Iran that they have no longer anything to do in Syria.
In Syria. And he's asked the Saudis to come in and as peacekeepers in Syria. And that means Saudi commandos are going to go to Syria and kill all the people who need killing. And he did something very brilliant. He allowed the infrastructure of the Assad government to remain in place. And those who personally didn't have blood on their hands, the bureaucrats, were allowed to remain in place. This is the first time anything like this has happened in the Middle East. What they've always done is they've and more just before what's more astonishing is that all those Syrians agreed to stay in the Middle East, agreed to stay in Syria. So they didn't pack their bags and flee the way everyone in Saddam's government did. So they believed Sarah that he wasn't going to hang them all from lampposts. And, Syria has a functioning government. The videos I've seen of the people celebrating in the streets to thank Trump, what struck me was how clean the streets were and how clean all these people were. It was as many women as men, and allegedly this is a country that's going to be ruled by Sharia law. I didn't see a headscarf out there, and I didn't see anybody coming around with a billy club saying, "Go get your headscarf," or "Go back inside. You're not allowed to be out here." So what I think people need to understand is that Sarah is walking a tightrope right now. He won't always be, but right now he still has people on his side who are maniacs and have to be killed. And so,
and if not soon, they might kill him.
They might kill him. So he has to. He doesn't make promises to them, but he avoids saying certain things. He sort of says in a lot of cases, nothing. And he's basically waiting for help because he doesn't. I mean, the Syrian Arab army was always garbage. All it could do was murder civilians. And
it was designed for that purpose only.
And the people who overthrew Assad, they're basically riflemen. And so, Sarah has no means of wiping out the worst of his jihadist allies. And so he needs help. The Gulf Arabs are willing to help him. It was Mohammed bin Salman who asked Trump to meet with Sarah, and Trump agreed because he trusts MBS. So,
but by the way, what a love fest between those two.
Yeah.
Amazing. At one point, I thought they were going to get a room together.
Well, the thing is, okay, Trump gave a speech that had multiple breaks for people to cheer. He basically said the West has spent too much time interfering in your affairs, and the nation builders haven't built a single nation, but they've brought down several. And you can't really argue with that.
No. What he said is what we've been saying for years. Fuck the nation builders. We're going to work with you guys so that you can develop in your own way.
And
now,
this is...
As long as there are certain parameters of civilization there, the rest is up to you.
Well, this is the thing, that there's too many people on our side who want us to do something to Saudi Arabia, even though they don't really know what they want us to do. Overthrow Mohammed bin Salman. The main reason people are confused or even upset about Trump's visit to the Middle East is because they don't know anything about what the Saudis have been doing for the last few years. They've Mohammed bin Salman said, and this has become part of Islam, due to modern technology, the word of Islam has been spread all around the world, and therefore the Muslim requirement to spread Islam is finished.
It's done. It's moot. It's already been spread. Thank you very much. Now let's go on to our business.
Exactly. It's already been spread.
Yeah.
And he also said everyone on earth has a right to choose what religion they want to practice, including no religion at all. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're having a Saudi saying atheism is fine. The Grand Imam at Al-Azhar University met with leaders of non-Abrahamic religions in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. Remember when the Buddhists and the Hindus were there?
Zoroastrians.
Zoroastrians, I mean, it never happened before without blood.
Well, basically, Muslims traditionally didn't recognize those as real religions.
No.
And so you have what
the children of the book and the savages.
Exactly. So you have, at the behest of the Saudis, no doubt, but also the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar is a very forward-thinking guy. And they essentially said every religion in the world is as valid as the others. And we're not going to get into religious discussions with people. You choose your religion, we'll choose our religion. And Saudi Arabia has also said that essentially Saudis can choose whether or not to be religious. The huge mistake that Ataturk made in Turkey was he put down Islam by force, which guaranteed that there would someday be a resurgence of extremely strict Islam.
Right.
And the Saudis understood you can't put down an entire religion by force. So
no, but we can piecemeal do away with the radicals. Remember when he took 700 imams out of Friday prayers and put them in a dungeon?
Yeah.
And they came out of the dungeon with their balls neatly placed around their neck, saying,
well, I saw a video of a
I don't know about politics anymore.
I saw a cleric giving a political sermon, and Saudi security came in, and this guy, first he held onto his podium. They yanked his hands off the podium, and like a cartoon, he was holding onto the doors. They were holding him horizontally. He was holding onto the door frame, yelling, and they yanked him out. And everyone was kind of going, what do we do now? And it's like, you could talk about whatever you want as long as it's not political and as long as it's not, anti-government.
And we shouldn't give a shit if they cut off the thief's hands in the public square.
Well, see,
that's their deal, not ours.
There's plenty of countries that look at us as the barbarians. We just had 2 firing squad executions carried out in North Carolina. Multiple states have brought back the electric chair, hanging. So
I'm a barbarian.
Personally, I'm agnostic about the death penalty. I don't care if a murderer is executed or given life without parole, but there are plenty of countries that call us the barbarians.
Yep.
So, it could be argued that a quick beheading with a sword. And anyway, when was the last time the Saudis cut off anybody's hands?
Oh, the 80s, I think.
Exactly. It's been 40 years. So
yeah, because I remember I actually saw one of these festivals. Yeah. It wasn't one guy; it was a shit ton of them, and they were doing the executions for the week.
Yeah,
and that was in the early 80s.
Yeah, that was right after Saudi Arabia, as a matter of survival, adopted that particular form of Islam in order to make sure that there was no other uprising for a while. But they undermined all this radical religion by educating all their kids in the West for decades. So
Who was I talking to the other day? Maybe we mentioned it last week. Eh, Not only did they educate their kids, which is not always a good thing because that involved Columbia, Harvard, Duke, Oxford, Cambridge. Uh, they also send them for military training in Texas and
absolutely.
California. There is no 30-year-old Saudi uh, that, of a certain class, of course, that did not go to a Western university or receive training in the U.S. Air Force or Army or all of the above. And that has changed everything.
Well, the Emiratis have their own Air Force base in Arizona, and
Yeah,
that was because when they were finally invited to the red flag competition that the U.S. Air Force gives off every year, they scored the highest that any country had ever scored, including the United States. So the Americans said, all right,
okay, come over here. What are you doing better than me?
yeah, you guys are going to be instructors from now on. But
Yeah,
see, what the people need to understand is that when it comes to the Middle East, we Westerners carry a lot of negative baggage. And
yep,
you need to understand that the second you start criticizing Middle Easterners, it brings to mind a whole bunch of really bad stuff.
yep.
And
And by the way, even Mark Levin. I'm by the way, no, I'm not picking on Mark Levin because I
yeah,
think
yeah,
he's a
yeah.
great guy, extremely intelligent, and I agree with him more often than not. But sometimes, you disagree, and you can do that in a civilized manner. He still repeats, the role of Saudi Arabia on 9/11, which I think his judgment is affected by prejudice. Uh,
Absolutely.
yes, there were hijackers that were born in Saudi Arabia or Yemen or France or Egypt. So what's the deal? There
Well,
were Al Qaeda higher ups that were born in California, Texas.
also there was even a member of the Saudi government who participated in 9/11. But the question 9/11. But the
That's
question
looking for
becomes
his asshole.
but the question becomes, was it Saudi government policy to carry out 9/11? Absolutely not.
No,
So you cannot blame.
Major Hassan carried out an Al Qaeda attack at Fort Hood and killed a number of servicemen and women. He was a major in the U.S. Army. Does that mean that the U.S. Army carried out the attack?
Well, exactly. You can't blame the Saudi government for the actions of individuals who are not acting in the name
No.
of the government. There are
Yeah,
multiple police officers who've been serial killers. I just watched something about the worst serial arsonist in California was he was a San Bernardino arson investigator, and his fires killed people. He was a
yeah.
murderer, and
Arson investigators are terrorists. You can't do that. And
no,
what Saudi did do is back in the 90s, they expelled Osama bin Laden, uh, canceled his citizenship, and notified the U.S. what kind of an asshole was loose out there.
well,
We should have listened.
the greatest diplomat we've ever had is an Afghan-born guy named Zalmay Khalilzad, and
Khalil said, yeah.
Zalmay Khalilzad was asked to come to Saudi Arabia, and an unidentified person who was, without question, Mohammed bin Salman. I don't want to say confessed, confirmed to Khalilzad that the Saudis had at one time supported terrorism, and that they were wrong to do so. And Khalilzad wrote an article about it, and he said, you need to understand that this is an earth-shaking admission from the Saudis, because in the Middle East, you never admit to a mistake, and you certainly never admit to an American for publication that your country did something wrong. When it comes to the wrongs of the United States, the Saudis are blameless. So for the Saudis to say we wronged the United States, it's never been said by any Middle Eastern leader. And so Khalilzad said, we'll see what happens. Well, that was 15 years ago, so we've seen what happened.
Look what happened.
Exactly.
And that brings, and by the way, you and I have had many a conversation over the past few years about my youth and my sympathies then. Yes, people make mistakes for a variety of reasons. It happens. You cannot get hung up on it and not change as the circumstances change. Jefferson, one of my favorite phrases of Jefferson, is inscribed inside his memorial in DC. We might as well ask a man to wear the coat that fitted him as a child than ask a society to live by the laws of its barbarous ancestors. As times and circumstances change, so too must we change to adapt to them.
Well, this is what's happening in the Middle East, is that the Israelis have destroyed all of Iran's proxy forces except for the Houthis, and the Houthis are now a pale shadow of what they used to be.
And they're getting hit. They got hit. 15 Israeli aircraft yesterday did pretty good work of what's left of the Houthis.
And the Saudis are now carrying out airstrikes as well. So
yes,
the Middle East has changed. The bad actors, the ones who are responsible for everything wrong in the Middle East, are the Iranian mullahs. And if and when the Israelis or the U.S. destroy the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, then the Iranians will rise up and take back their country. And you can bet.
And it will happen.
Well, you can bet that there's an organized resistance ready to go.
Yes.
I
can vouch for that.
I read years ago that despite Iran being a police state, they were a very inept police state when it came to foreign. Okay, remember when the Israelis went to Iran and smuggled out 2.5 tons of documents and CDs
from the nuclear program about 10 years ago?
Yeah. So I mean, they had to have 18-wheelers to do that. So I have absolutely no doubt that Gulf Arabs,
I'll bet you had
Gulf Arabs and the Israelis have been to Iran and have met with the opposition, and somebody is ready to take over when the IRGC is destroyed, and that'll be the end.
There are 3 groups that are going to work together, and then they're going to fight it off.
Say it again.
There are 3 distinct groups that are going to act together to kick the mullahs out, and then are going to have their own fight between the 3 to see who wins.
Yeah, and if they do, then that's what they choose to do. If the fighting in Syria post Assad has actually not the what we were told, the propaganda that came out of Syria it was wildly exaggerated, the number of casualties and
Oh yeah.
all that sort of thing. That they were all Christians were now endangered, and all Druze were going to be killed. Thousands of Druze had been killed, and that didn't happen. But if the Iranians decide that as soon as they get their freedom, they need a civil war, then that's their business. If another dictatorship takes over that wants to export jihad, then we'll just bomb them again. I have a feeling. Okay, we had a car bombing here in Palm Springs today, and that was the weirdest car bombing I've ever seen. It destroyed a fertility clinic, and I've never seen a car bomb that was able to direct the blast effect as efficiently as that one did. So every car bomb I've ever seen explodes in all directions.
Yeah, now there has to be some kind of steel reinforcement on one side to direct the blast in one direction, because otherwise, I don't know how they could do it.
Well, I've been thinking about it. Okay, they found part of the car, and I can't tell if it's the front or the back. I think it's the front. I think it's the engine, because I think okay, the clinic was here, and the car bomb was here, and all the blast effect went from the car bomb in this direction. It cut like a scalpel through that building, and the buildings on either side of the fertility clinic were intact. And if you look at the side that faced the street, it's literally a perfectly rectangular hole. And the car did a backflip and landed in the parking lot, and they're being very careful, but I'm sure it was the driver. The driver flew out of the parking lot and landed a street away. And I saw a picture. They said human body parts. That was a deboned human being. That was everything from head to knees, but it was just like had been sort of shredded off the skeleton. And it was clearly a car bomb. You can see the blast marks on the asphalt, but the blast marks going away from the clinic are minuscule compared to just this. It's almost as if do you remember in the Syrian civil war, they had these things called hell cannons, and they were thick iron pipes that you put this big jug of explosives in, and you fired it, and it was like a mortar. And if the car had something
and you could fire all kinds of shit in there.
Exactly. And
cutting through people like they were butter.
Exactly. And okay, I didn't know that there are conservative groups that oppose in vitro fertilization. So if this turns out to be some religious person or some conservative or whatever, then this is like the stupidest terrorist attack ever carried out. Apparently the clinic was empty, but blowing up an in vitro, thank God there were no families or women in there, because that would have been an absolute just, blowing those people up for wanting babies. Or it could be, who knows whoever did it was obviously insane, because they stayed in their car as they pressed their button, and they prayed to their God or whomever, and ended up as a deboned pile of shit in the street. But if it's a conservative or a Christian Okay, I guess we had, was it in the 80s that some nutcase was blowing up Planned Parenthood clinics with pipe bombs and things?
Yeah, there were several nutheads.
Yeah.
One was a Presbyterian minister uh, who,
That's all we need.
who went to the electric chair in Florida singing psalms.
Yeah, and he arrived at the pearly gates, and St. Peter yanked the lever, and he went through the trap door.
Yeah. So, but can you imagine singing psalms on the electric chair? Of course, God didn't give a shit and he fried.
Yeah. No, I mean, I just, it's very odd. It's just from looking at what I could see, it looked like a really specific car bomb that was designed to blast all its force in one direction.
The only way you can direct the force is by having some kind of very reinforced steel inside the car or the van.
Yeah.
So that the expansion wave bounces and comes back like a secondary explosion. Let me. There's a lot of talk in the chat about Bin Laden and Clinton and the Saudis, and some of it is true. Some of it is short of the truth. Yes, Prince Bandar did warn not Bush, Clinton, about Bin Laden. So did Billy Vaughan from England when Bin Laden was still in Khartoum in '94. Bin Laden was a very known factor. In fact, when I was watching on TV 9/11 unfold, a guy that worked in the next office that was almost in shock. He said, "Who could have done that?" And I said, "Bin Laden."
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Who is that?" I said, "You're about to find out." If I knew it, everybody knew it, because I wasn't privy to some kind of secret hocus pocus information.
I remember when Bin Laden declared war on the U.S. in whatever it was in 1998.
94.
94?
94. There was a fatwa that directed his forces to attack the U.S. And there is one more thing. Somebody said here he warned Bush. Bush was inaugurated in January of 2001, if you guys remember, 8 months before 9/11. He had no transition. The Clinton White House refused to set up a transition for Bush because the election was disputed. Mm-hmm. And he may never be president. So there is no transition equipment, no passing of the baton, no information, nothing. He was inaugurated on January 21st, and then he had to start finding out everything, not in November, but in January. He was so worried that he kept that asshole Tenet in the CIA.
Mm-hmm.
He kept intelligence people from the Clinton administration, all of them who proved to be totally fucking useless, like Tenet. If not, how should I put this, fifth columns. And if there is one person we cannot blame in this picture, is Bush. He was handed the hot potato by Clinton, but without being told there was a hot potato. And the people who were in the intelligence community were the same ones who were under Clinton, because Bush did not want to rock the boat, not knowing what was cooking. He assumed that these assholes knew. Well, the rest is history. So Clinton has got a lot of blame in this. Bandar has none. The British government has none. We had, at one point, we had Bin Laden in the crosshairs. We had a drone in Afghanistan that located bin Laden. He was like the tallest figure. Did you ever see that the video of this encounter?
Yeah, I saw
Uh,
that.
and you can see bin Laden is like by far the tallest one of them all. At that moment, all they had to do was, and there went bin Laden and Al Qaeda. Clinton never gave the order because others might be wounded too. Would you have given a shit?
Well, international
I,
humanitarian law and the Geneva Conventions allow for collateral damage. Um, it,
personally, if the target is bin Laden and I got him, I don't care if Mother Teresa is having tea with him.
no, we went into the Afghanistan and then Iraq fighting the war. Every strike had to be approved by a member of the Judge Advocate General Corps. And so there was another case where bin Laden was spotted, and the Judge Advocate General Corps member couldn't make up her mind about whether or not he should be destroyed with a missile. And I forgot his name. He was a Secretary of Defense twice. Rumsfeld. Rumsfeld was pitching a fit, and she wouldn't give in because she just couldn't. She didn't want the responsibility, and he was saying, "I'll take the fucking responsibility."
Just shoot the motherfucker.
Yeah, but she wouldn't, and so he got away that time too.
And no, and then during the Obama years, how many times these things, and even before 9/11, when they had him in the crosshairs, they knew he was the one behind the bombing of the embassies in Kenya and Tanzania. Eh, eh, they knew he was behind the attack on the USS Cole. They should have blown him to smithereens.
Well, the thing about jihadist terrorist attacks against the United States is that they let's see, they went like this. They kept getting more and more destructive, and we were stuck in this idea that terrorism was a law enforcement matter, and that when bin Laden declared war on the U.S., we said, "Who's bin Laden? Who cares? He's just another
we're still stuck.
Nutcase." And after it was revealed that Putin had warned us about an upcoming attack on New York City, but the problem with everything is that there was no actionable intelligence. Nobody knew that 4 crews of suicide pilots and muscle had trained to fly commercial airliners but not land them, and
tragically, some people did know.
Well, somebody knew in the sense that, and
I say tragically because there was no communication.
Nobody knew that this attack was going to be carried out in the time frame it was going to be carried out by the individuals who were going to carry it out. Nobody was able to put all those pieces together and say a guy named Mohammed Atta and a bunch of other people are going to hijack these particular planes from these airports. There was no way to prevent it, in the sense that the people that were looking for something were, they were looking for a needle in a giant pile of needles. because okay, the
No,
chatter, the
and
terrorist chatter was going through the roof, and
yeah,
we had all the warning signs of an attack, but we didn't
yes,
know it could be argued that the only guy who anticipated 9/11 specifically was the head of security for the Twin Towers, a guy named Rick Riscorla.
yeah, but he wasn't the only one. He wasn't the only one. There were a shit ton of people that were expecting the air attack, not specifically in the manner it occurred, but they were expecting the air attack. And Scorla did, and he screamed out loud. What about the people in Minnesota who got Zakaria Moussaoui, the French hijacker?
Mm-hmm.
All of the details were in his computer. His computer was sitting in the FBI office. Nobody looked into it because
Yeah,
we don't have grounds for a search order. We're talking about terrorists, you stupid ass.
well, this is the thing that pre 9/11 was a completely different mindset than it is today. And I remember perfectly my mother coming over and standing in my garden and banging on my window, telling me that the Twin Towers had collapsed. And I was like, I had no idea what the hell she was talking about. So we went into the living room and turned on the TV, and the both towers had collapsed, and they were replaying the collapses over and over again. And it was just like, but how is this possible? How is this possible? And now we know what's possible. We know what's possible. We've okay. There are going to be individuals who carry out attacks for, maybe the rest of your and my lifetimes. But the sort of, the Islamic State as it existed from, 2013 to whenever we destroyed it, Al Qaeda as it existed before, where it was a gigantic, heavily armed and fabulously wealthy group of what's the term they use? Something combatants, irregular combatants.
It is irregular combatants.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to have that to the same level that we had before.
No, but those never worried me. The ones that worry me are groups of 5. Very difficult to detect. You could cross them on the street and you don't know what you just met.
Well,
and they're all over the place right now, courtesy of Obama first and Biden second.
Of course, but we're not going to see airliners being flown into skyscrapers again. I don't think we're going to see 100 car bombs going off on the same day again. It was never happened. Actually, it did happen. It happened. The car bombers were biker gangs. It happened in I think the 70s in some city where they were blowing up multiple car bombs per day. But the groups of 5, there's only so much they can do, though. We kept, there's people. Who's that guy who he wrote for the New Yorker, Seymour Hersh. How many times did Seymour Hersh tell us
that fucking imbecile?
Yeah, that Al Qaeda had suitcase bombs in the country, and he's going to set them off.
Dirty bombs.
Yeah.
Well, but Seymour Hersh is the same fucking asshole who told you that the U.S. blew up Nord Stream 2,
mm-hmm.
The CIA. mind you.
Of course.
I mean, there's nothing but the most outlandish conspiracy theories coming out of the pen of that moron.
Well, he said,
and they keep publishing him.
He said that Obama was going to carry out strikes on Syria using our entire fleet of B-52s and B-2 bombers, and he had to be talked out of it. And it was like, yeah, Obama, sure, of course.
Obama had to be talked out of bombing something.
Exactly.
You couldn't talk the son of a bitch into throwing a New Year's Eve firework into Syria. By the way, for a little break from this, Doña Sara is informed me in the chat that apparently they were drinking too much tequila in the Mexican school sailboat. There you go. And they either thought that the Brooklyn Bridge was taller or their masts were shorter. And
how is that possible?
Well, they just hit the Brooklyn Bridge with their mast.
That mast is like 15, 20 feet taller than the bridge.
Yeah.
It's not a foot taller.
Literally. Let me see if I can do something with this. Oh yeah.
When you're on a boat, there comes a point where you no longer have control, and you're just a passenger, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
Yeah, but listen, on my boat, I had to go through very low bridges, of course, otherwise it wouldn't have been a problem. But you knew how to approach the bridge and wait for clearance, and were always aware, whatever the tide was, what was your height. Always. If you're approaching the Brooklyn Bridge by water, you're going to see the markers at the base of the columns with numbers marking you where the tide is and what is the height. And if you know the height of your bridge, you cannot do this unless, of course, everybody in the bridge drank a couple of bottles of Cuervo.
Or maybe they're just totally incompetent.
Entirely possible. Entirely possible, my friend. So, what can I say? They just hit the Brooklyn Bridge. Somebody was telling me it reminds them of the bridge in Baltimore Harbor. No. Number one, the Brooklyn Bridge was built back in the days when America knew how to build shit. It is impossible to topple it. Number two, it just hit with the masts over there, so there's going to be some damage, but not structural. And they just look stupid. And this is, the new officer class of the Mexican Navy.
Yeah.
Boy, this is going to be fun. I'm going to have so much fun with them. So anyway, that was my little break. Mexican ship hits its masts against the Brooklyn Bridge. Fucking crazy.
That's just really embarrassing.
It is, isn't it? Dan here says that he a former IC guy who confirmed Clinton failed to allow the strike. I know, I got it from somebody who was in the room. And he showed it to me while showing me the video, which later was published everywhere. So now you can see what I saw, and it's like, God, this is how we had him. The video of Bin Laden in a camp in Afghanistan taken by the drone that could have taken him out. Kelly, Mark Levine said there were boxes and boxes of books by Saul Alinsky in the White House when they got there, left over by Carter's people. Yeah, obviously nobody read them. They were hoarding them. Who gives a shit? Really, who gives a shit? And Alinsky, frankly, is such a fourth-rate character that
Well, look at
I
all the
don't
people who followed him. Look where they are today. Look at Hillary
more.
Clinton.
Yeah, but those are, you know, the Chicago activist type.
Hmm?
Of course, you know, they're like fourth-rate people in a third-rate city following a fourth-rate activist. What's the transcendence of that? Zero, none, zilch. There
Yeah,
were all
no.
more dangerous people using them.
In the upcoming elections, Obama is going to have absolutely no influence whatsoever.
Oh, he already. You know that he was in Poland this week?
He was where?
In Poland, campaigning for the socialist candidate there.
Talk
Did
about
you hear, did you
talk
hear
about.
what I said?
Yeah, I mean, he just guaranteed that the other guy's going to win.
Uh, Probably, but also, uh, you know, this is the guy who wanted to use the Logan Act on Michael Flynn.
Hmm?
And there he is campaigning for the Socialist Party in Poland.
Yeah. No, I mean, they're desperate. They think that Obama is going to appeal to the average Pole.
Now, the average Pole is going to roast him.
Yeah.
What an imbecile. There are a lot of comments on the towers, but it really depresses me to think about the towers. It was a bad time, and it got worse progressively as I realized that our response to jihadism was taken in water. I can't believe after 9/11 we realized that we could not treat jihadists as chicken thieves. And after 2009, that's precisely what we did.
Yeah.
And we're still doing it. They aren't that many, but they come in and out. You know, every now and then they take a little R&R in an American facility, eat 3 squares a day, and come out more radicalized than ever. Um, the fact that we still have the Muslim Brotherhood in the halls of government in the US, the fact that we still allow CARE to operate unhindered, even when we have, with the Holy Land Foundation shit and all that jazz, when we have the goods on them for decades as money baggers for terrorists, we still allow them to operate in our universities, in our governments. We still allow them to spew their shit in mosques and in.
Well,
I mean, what kind of idiot?
Hassan Piker is the largest leftist political commentator on social media on all platforms, and he's openly pro-Hamas and openly calls for the murder of Jewish people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he can't get banned on his platform Twitch. He can't get banned on YouTube. You know, he has
why not? They keep hitting on us.
Yeah, but for whatever reason, Hassan Piker is untouchable, And you know, he's pathetic. He was pulled aside by who is it at the airports? The security.
TSA.
Yeah, he was pulled aside by TSA, and to hear him talk about it, you would think that he survived Devil's Island or something. And you know, he's just this whiny little twat. And
I volunteered to show him the difference.
Well, I mean, I told you, I can't remember if I told you, but Tim Pool had this guy on, and the guy was some leftist, and the guy was like, he was like an android. He just kept repeating these leftist talking points, and when they would be blown up, he would just repeat them a couple minutes later. And these people are unreachable. Like there's no point in having a leftist on your show to debate them, because they're literally like androids. They're
Yep.
It's, they call Trump supporters cultists. Trump supporters aren't cultists. They're, if anything, they're way too critical. The cultists are leftists.
I think I saw that one after you told me of this guy. I looked it up, and I think I saw it, and I saw a clip in that interview when they're talking about the myth of verifying people on both sides. The guy had a brick wall on his ears.
Yeah.
Tim Pool, I'm not saying his praises either, because I don't like it, but when he's right, he's right. And he's saying you're missing the other half of the video. Oh, and how do you know it's there? By the way, I remember the original.
Yeah, exactly.
On TV in real time.
Yeah.
I never understood this canard.
Yeah.
And he says, no, it exists. And he says, specifically, he exempts neo-Nazis and this and that and nativists. And he says, oh, okay. Well, when he compares Nazis and says good people, but didn't we just settle this?
Yeah. No, he was corrected on it about 10 or 15 times, and
Yes.
it never stuck. He just kept repeating it like an android.
Yes. And
this is
people went like, oh, you're seriously, you're saying this? It's like, what am I wasting my time here for?
Yeah. This is why it's there's no point. Like, it's clear now, okay, Gavin Newsom's presidential run is blown up before it even started. He's not capable of defending himself. He's calling for Californians to pay more money for illegals. He's putting a cap on the number of illegals who will get free health care. So
yes.
that's
no more adults on Medi-Cal starting January 1st, 26.
Yeah. So whenever he's questioned about his record, he falls apart, and then he gets angry, then he gets snarky. So it's going to be Ocasio-Cortez, and all the androids are going to be pretending that she's this genius, and they're going to walk into another catastrophic election result, and they won't know why it happened.
Well, the big speech they are going to. I heard it today on the radio. I heard this unhinged, hysterical woman talking with a weird accent that I couldn't place, and it turned out to be her.
Yeah. She's experimenting with her accent now.
God, she's worse than I remembered.
And also,
I don't pay much attention to her.
Okay, the thing about her is that she's unpleasant, she's off-putting, and she's abnormal. Trump is exceptionally normal.
Yes.
When Trump speaks, he always speaks conversationally.
Yes.
Like you are familiar with Trump. You've met a million people like Trump. You've never met anyone.
I say it all the time. He talks like one of the guys on Queens Boulevard, Delhi.
Yeah. And you've never met anyone like Ocasio-Cortez in your life. She's completely abnormal, but she's also utterly unpleasant. She's completely off-putting. Her voice alone is going to guarantee that she loses.
Somebody says here, Newsom wants to tax tourists to increase tourism. That'll work.
Perfect. Perfect.
Perfect. What I heard today was an appeal to save Hollywood.
Okay.
Because all the movie making is happening outside of California, and all of the film folk in Hollywood are out of work, and we need to start making movies in Hollywood then, and conservatives should go there to make movies to save Hollywood. Why?
Well,
just bury the fucking place.
Well, also the reason they're out of work is that it's impossible for these people to live in California where they want to live. Like $1 million house in California is like it's a ramshackle hut. That's $1 million house, and the salaries that the people who actually make the movies, okay, the actors. I read somewhere that when you budget a movie, 75% of the budget is going for the salary of the actor, the director, and the screenwriter. And then 25% goes to the trucks, the lighting,
everything else,
and all the people who operate the trucks and the lighting. So they're not getting paid anything. They can't afford to live anywhere. Hollywood is now experimenting with AI scripts and you know,
I don't think they're going to be good, but they cannot be worse than the shit that Hollywood is producing now.
Well, that's the icing on the cake, is that the reason Hollywood can't be saved is because every movie coming out of Hollywood is a polemic, a leftist polemic.
No, propaganda outright.
Mm-hmm.
They cannot say 3 words without talking about gender issues, global warming, and the oligarchy.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, now they're also...
It's a good day, yes, but the rich want to make it bad.
Yeah. No, they keep having these thinly disguised Donald Trumps in their movies as the arch villain.
Yes.
But it's a movie that would appeal only to a leftist idiot.
Yeah, and that's why they are tanking.
Yeah,
miserably. And indie movies and other better movies are not made in Hollywood anymore. They're filmed in Texas, in North Carolina, in Florida, overseas, in the Caribbean, where it is cheaper, when they don't have to bribe half the fucking city of Los Angeles to get one shoot, and where they can find people who are not so much into propaganda.
Well, I watch a lot of every night before I go to bed, I watch a movie either on Netflix or Prime or Paramount Plus. And there are a lot of really good new movies coming out. They're small movies, but good science. I watched a science fiction movie about a guy. It takes place in the future, and in the future, if someone you love dies, their consciousness can be uploaded into essentially what looks like a telephone booth, and you can talk to them. It's their consciousness. You get about 2 years before they fade out. And so what he does is he hacks into this device and he uploads his wife's consciousness into an android. So he's broken all the laws, and everybody's coming after him. And the android wife is very unhappy because she can't eat, she can't have sex, she can't sleep. She's an android. And this was a little tiny movie. It had 5 people in the cast, and it must have cost $2 million tops. And it was an excellent movie. It was full of spectacular actors, and it was fine. It was great, and it really made you think, because the android that he uploaded his wife into was the 3rd iteration, and the 2nd iteration got really jealous and was upset.
You don't want a jealous android, dear.
Yeah, it was saying, why don't you work on me? Why don't you? And he was like really, really mean to the 2nd android, and the androids were all female, and so eventually the 2nd android just walked into a lake and committed suicide by walking into this lake. And it was very moving. It was very sad. And Hollywood isn't putting out stuff like that.
I'm still laughing because the idea of robots with feelings, it's kind of funny to me. I understand it's an android. It had the mental structure of the wife, but
see, the whole point of the movie was,
Isaac Asimov.
Well, the whole point of the movie was, when it's your time to go, you have to go. You're not going to be happy. Your wife isn't. See, when she found out that she was in a robot body, she got hysterical with rage, and he had to try and convince her that this was for the best, and she was telling him, "This is for you. This isn't for me." And I don't know.
I would have been happy in Oblivion.
No, there's tons of these movies being made, and they're all much better than, okay, Snow White. Disney re-released the Rachel Rachel, whatever the hell her name is. Whatever. They re-released it again. And it bombed even worse the 2nd time around.
But listen, you cannot fix a turd.
No.
Once a turd, always a turd. You're not going to turn it into gold. That woman, by the way, is insufferable. He managed to piss off everybody and their mothers. And I'm going to say, she's probably the one female that I've had the disgust of watching operate worse than Ocasio-Cortez.
Well, she got hired to do all this stuff on Broadway because she's got this utterly bland Broadway singing voice. You've heard that type of Broadway singing voice where it's just kind of like and before the shows even get started,
you mean like Bradley Cooper?
Yeah, I guess. Before the shows have even started, she's pissed off everybody she's working with, and nobody can stand her. It's like,
she's unbearable.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that she was unbearable since she left the cradle. But now that she thinks of herself as a diva,
yeah,
it's gone hypersonic unbearable.
Well, okay, this ties into Trump.
Wait, she's so, I have to say this, she's so unbearable, she's insurmountable.
There we go. So this ties into Trump. There are people who think that negotiations are, you walk in the room and you say, okay, this is how it's going to go. And you, Putin, you sit down, you're going to do as I say, asshole. Trump doesn't do that because he knows that that's not a negotiation. That's
what the Russians did in Istanbul.
Exactly.
See how it went.
Putin calls for a face-to-face, then he doesn't show up. Then he says, we're going to send Lavrov. Lavrov doesn't show up.
No.
So the whole thing is ridiculous.
So they send the water boy from the foreign ministry, and he says, well, we're going to take all of these 4 provinces that they're not fully occupying. So we're going to take all the land we occupy, and we're going to take this much land we're not currently occupying, and you're going to give it to us.
Yeah.
Well, no. By the way, first they said no to a ceasefire. Then they demanded the land. The Ukrainians said, fuck no. Oh, well, next time we sit down, it's going to be 5, not 4.
Yeah.
And at the airport, he said, did I say 5? I meant 8.
Yeah. No, the Russians...
Yeah, negotiations. They actually managed to piss off everybody, including Trump.
Well, the Russians, they have to come to the realization that as long as Putin is alive, this nightmare isn't going to end. They have to get rid of Putin. Putin is delusional, and I mean this what's going on between Ukraine and Russia is, if it weren't so disgusting, it would be utterly laughable. It's the Russians with their donkeys and their soldiers on crutches.
Now they're launching infantry attacks on bicycles.
On bicycles.
This is a Peter Sellers movie.
I saw a video. It was Ukrainian special forces at a village, and they were all wearing the GoPros. And this soldier, he looks up in the sky, and you see this drone go by. Meow. And he says, drone. Then the drone comes back, and he shoots twice, and the second shot hits the drone, and it blows up. So I've seen the Russians, I've seen videos of the Ukrainian drones that are the size of Cessnas coming in, and you hear the Russians firing at them, and they can't hit them, and the drone hits the target. This guy fired twice at an FPV drone, the little quadricopter, and he hit it with the second round. That's how good the Ukrainians are.
A little thing that people don't know. The Ukrainians are now manufacturing 200,000 drones per month.
Yeah.
80% of the casualties inflicted on the Russians are inflicted by Ukrainian home manufactured drones. Back at the beginning, when we were speculating what could or could not happen, and it turns out we were the only ones who were right. And I'll say it until my beard falls off, because it's true. There was the crowd that was prognosticating a quick takeover of Ukraine by mighty Russia, and in 3 weeks it'll be over. And there was the crowd that was saying that, well, you know, time it favors the Russians. True, they're stalemated, but they will break the stalemate and they will eat Ukraine inside of 2 years. Well, we said this is going to be long. But one of the things that I try to remind people is that when the Soviet Union was the Soviet Union, all of its parts had specific types of industry allocated to them, including the Warsaw countries, the Warsaw Pact countries. So all of the heavy trucks were manufactured in Czechoslovakia. As well as all of the plastic explosives. In Hungary, they made cars. In Yugoslavia, they made cars, which we knew in the US as the Yugo, Fiats. The Ladas were Fiats as well. All of the defense industries were in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
The tank factories, the plane factories, the shipyards, they were all in Ukraine. If there was an area of the Soviet Union where you had the workforce and the installed capacity to produce weapons, It was Ukraine. Guess what? They still have it.
Mhm.
And now they're not making Ruslan planes. They're not making Antonovs. They're making drones.
Mhm.
And they're putting them out like the Liberty ships. They're making 200,000 drones per month.
Well, that's why they can launch a 500 drone attack in one night.
It's nothing.
Mhm.
You're going to see 1,000 drone attacks in one night anytime now. And there is nothing. Motosig, for example. Yeah, there's, as usual, there's people in the chat who know everything. You have to be careful what you say here. They pulled the Black Sea Fleet 300 miles off. They do not dare go near Ukraine. When was the last time there was an air attack on Ukraine? Not missiles, planes.
Well, the Ukrainians began shooting down all the munitions that aircraft dropped
Yep.
using an unspecified weapon that they said was a new weapon, and they haven't identified it yet. But
I think it's the modified Neptune that they.
it could be. But okay, the Russians had like 12 of their Tu-95 Bear strategic bombers left. And in one attack, the Ukrainians destroyed, I think, 6 or 7 of them. So the remainders were taken all the way, past
The Urals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those were the ones that were dropping the cruise missiles and things. And
yeah.
They can't do it anymore.
No, because they used to use the Su-35s and drop missiles or gliding bombs from a distance.
Mm-hmm.
The last one the Ukrainians shut down, they shut down with a ground-to-air missile shot from a sea drone.
Yeah, and they shot down. They shot down.
Nobody ever done this before.
No, that's a first.
And it's like, okay, so now they have sea drones that can take down strategic bombers.
Mm-hmm.
The inventiveness of the Ukraine, and this is their own weapons,
mm-hmm.
not anything that we have given them.
No, and okay, the Israelis they're tied with the U.S. with having the most advanced armed forces in the world. Israeli tanks now have the cages on top, the anti-drone cages. So that's how the Ukrainians have changed warfare. And if we end up sending tanks into battle in the future, we're going to have cages on top of ours too.
Yeah. And goes, somebody's just gotten the Yugo reference. It's, by the way, I had a Yugo for a while. It was a fun little car. I had it in New York. It was a Fiat 147. It was a fine little car that I paid nothing for. But anyway, going back to this thing, the Ukrainians have developed, as the Russians begin to falter, the Ukrainians are getting stronger by their own means every day.
Well, okay. I want to say something. I was watching a show, a British guy. He started complaining about how the defense industry make money hand over fist. And you and I have pointed out that the net profit margin for the defense industry is about 3.7%.
Yeah.
The U.S. military just canceled its light tank program. It was called the M10 Booker. And
there's another bankruptcy around the corner.
the company that was producing the Booker put billions into it, billions. And the U.S. military finally said it's too heavy and its armor isn't good enough. So that defense company has to eat that entire cost of billions. Yeah. So don't tell me that the defense contractors are making money hand over fist.
Where is McDonnell Douglas?
Exactly.
Who used to make the TriStar?
Oh God, yeah.
That's Lockheed. It's
well,
Lockheed,
okay.
McDonnell Douglas. We used to have 6 or 7 great aircraft manufacturers. We're down to 1.
Well, look at World War II. We had the Brewster Company. You had the, of course, Grumman. You had Curtiss. You had, just name after name after name after name, and they're all gone.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do the Chinese have this problem?
No.
You see, what these fucking imbeciles, and I'm sorry, but I really have no patience for these idiots. What these fucking imbeciles don't realize is, number one, we need a defense industry. Without a defense industry, there is no US. Period. Every time we need to build something, we have to go through years of pre-approvals and bids. And sometimes, ridiculous. One of the things was every time we needed a new plane, we had competition. 2 companies invested $10 billion each to develop the goddamn thing. And then a bunch of generals go and says, okay, well, we'll take number 1. And number 2 just lost $10 billion. And sometimes number 1 would be generous and offer subcontracts to number 2 so they could make up. The Chinese don't have this problem.
Mm-mm.
The Air Force says, we need a fighter jet. And the government says, how many? And then they put as many other little tiny slaves to work in a government a company with unlimited funds to make as many of this shit as they possibly can. Now, granted, they don't have the technology yet, but one day they might. And with this system of not having to go through bullshit and not bankrupting companies, they have an enormous advantage over us. We have to stop bullshitting about the defense industry. Number one, as you pointed out so many times, how many defense industries are in the top 100 of the Fortune 500?
One is at 96 and the other is at 98 out of the top 100.
Oh my, they control the universe. By the way, I don't even want to see this, but I wonder what's their size compared to, say, Tesla.
Well, also, the most profitable industry in the United States is to own and rent space to mobile home parks. If you own a mobile home park and you rent the space to people who build their houses out of a mobile home, you're making like 80% net profit every year. It's shocking.
Much better than building, an apartment building and renting it out.
Well, okay, I remembered something. The New York Times columnist Paul Krugman said that
that asshole.
He wanted Obama to have all the powers of a Chinese dictator for one day, because then he could solve all our problems. It's like, okay, if you think that's the case, why haven't the Chinese solved all their own problems with their own dictator over the past, or since 1949?
Yeah. And when Trump makes a joke about that and says, I would love to be dictator for a day. Oh, he's a tyrant. He wants to abolish democracy. Paul Krugman can say it. Trump cannot. And by the way, Paul Krugman is a fucking imbecile who's never been right about anything.
Never.
Never. He's worse than Jim Cramer. But anyway, so we need to defend our. I'm sick and tired of pseudo-capitalists who do nothing but attack our necessary industries. Look at all these people. They rant and rave about the defense industry. They rant and rave about big pharma. They rant and rave about I don't know, banks, airlines. Why don't they go live in Cuba? They have none of the above. I'm sure that makes them happy.
How about Cambodia under the Khmer Rouge, where they abolished currency, industry, education? The only thing that was you could do in under the Khmer Rouge was be a farmer, and they couldn't even get that right.
Yeah. Somebody's saying here, you know that every now and then I try to get the guys on the chat to participate. This is a new one. A big UK YouTuber, chapeau, a big YouTuber in the UK, must be an imbecile. Oh, yes, it is. Said that military tech orders from Saudi Arabia would give a huge boost to the USA economy. That YouTuber in the UK doesn't have the foggiest fucking idea of the size of the American economy or even of the military technology that the Saudis are buying.
I think isn't it 163 billion or something like that?
I was going to say round it up to 200 billion.
Yeah.
200 billion is a tip. 200 billion is rounding a number in the budget. It's nothing. This country produces $34 trillion a year, and it spends, let me see, like 10 trillion, mostly on bullshit.
Yeah. Okay. If our GDP is 34 trillion,
yeah,
a trillion is 1,000 billion.
Yes.
So 200 billion is what 8/10
0.0
7/10 of 1% of the economy.
Yeah,
like that.
Oh, big fucking boost. Big fucking boost. They don't know what they're talking. Krugman is impressive, says another one. It takes real talent to be wrong 100% of the time. On the economy, this idiot, and by the way, he's a Nobel Prize.
Ooh.
And I please ask all of you to find out why they gave him the Nobel Prize in economy. And you're going to find out that it is a tract of mostly bullshit that turned out to be completely debunked 5 years later, and it's totally useless. It's the story of his life. This guy got a Nobel Prize for being wrong. It's the only thing he knows how to do.
Well, what about giving Obama a Nobel Prize for all the good things he was going to do in the future?
Yeah, well, but the Nobel Prize they gave to Obama is the same one they gave to Nelson Mandela, Yasser Arafat, Jimmy Carter, Rigoberta Menchú, Pérez Esquivel. I mean, there isn't an... I'm sorry. Hitler lover, Anwar el-Sadat. There isn't an asshole, terrorist, or bad character couldn't get the Nobel Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize. Not one. So imagine that. Al Gore is always wrong too. Okay. Is this somebody who's always wrong but never in doubt?
Yeah, I mean, okay. The issue with Americans is that once you have a brand name, you could be wrong for the rest of your career, but your brand name will allow you to coast through. And that's why, okay, the director Ridley Scott has been producing nothing but garbage for decades now, but he's riding along on the successes he had in 1981. So Ridley Scott, oh my God. But it's the same thing. Paul Krugman, he's a brand name, and so he coasts along on being a brand.
He is the idiot who has no shame and will publish what his friends in the Democratic Party want to hear. In exchange for that, he gets a shit ton of money from the New York Slimes every year, for as long as the Slimes exists.
Well, and what's fascinating about all these people is they gave their lives to the Democratic Party, and then when they hit rough times, like Joy Reid, Jim Acosta, Don Lemon, they were all tossed over the shoulder. Yeah. Like Jim Acosta is doing Substack now.
Oh, he's still alive?
Yeah. Don Lemon is doing street interviews.
Yes, I saw a couple of those. I laughed my ass off.
Yeah.
He's now reduced to the condition of a glorified TikToker.
Also, he's decided he wants to look like Urkel. He's wearing the same Urkel glasses.
Yes. I also saw that he doesn't get the answers he wants.
No.
And he starts arguing with the interviewee.
Mm-hmm.
And usually ends up pretty poorly because the poor son of a bitch cannot put two sentences together on his own.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How about Jake Tapper?
Jake Tapper. Yeah.
The son of a bitch has come out with a book now denouncing the people who covered for Biden and didn't let the world know that he was incapacitated.
Yeah, and poor Jake Tapper was taken in by all those people.
He was the leader of that band. The son of a bitch would argue with it. If anybody went to his program on the Clinton News Network and said something about Biden being, out of it, he would dispose of him. You don't know what you're talking about. He's okay. He's fine. I mean, by the way, another thing I did in the car, there are advantages and disadvantages to be prisoner in a car for 9 hours. And one of them is I listened to the entirety of the Heard interview of Biden.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I am ashamed to be an American. We had that for a president. We allowed that shit to be our president.
Yeah.
How is that even possible, for crying out loud?
Well, he was already senile before he even
before
ran.
the election.
Yeah.
That's why there were no press conferences. He campaigned out of a fucking basement with 4 people around him. And nobody called him on that.
Okay.
I don't mean you or I, but all of the press corps.
Joe Scarborough said that Joe Biden was sharper than he'd ever been.
Yes.
And now Joe Biden says that Ocasio-Cortez is a brilliant speaker. Well, she's a genius. They haven't learned a damn thing.
Compared to him, she is.
Well, they're going to do the same. They're going to do even more of what lost them the 2024 elections.
Biden or Scarborough look at Ocasio-Cortez like I look at Stephen Hawkins, with humility. If you want a turtle, read through the list of Nobel Peace Prize laureates. It's a roulette wheel of assholes. I just mentioned like a dozen of them. Yes, it is. By the way, I like the expression. It's a roulette wheel of assholes. Yeah. Ooh. Who was speaking remotely in the debates? In some debates, nobody was. That's why he tilted. Remember when he froze?
Mm-hmm.
And Obama had to grab his hand?
Yeah.
And take him out? Catatonic?
Well, how about all the times Biden would be walking along and all of a sudden he'd stop and he'd bend his knees and then he'd produce a big smile.
Yeah,
and
he farted.
Well, see, I saw a Twitter comment and it said, anybody who's ever had a toddler knows exactly what just happened.
He farted. Or he sharted.
Yeah, he filled his diaper is what he did.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of those.
Yeah.
And yeah, that comment is accurate. That's what I saw, at least.
Yeah.
And when he started walking towards the light,
yeah,
maybe he thought he was dead already. Oh, I'm going towards the light. And we're still discussing. And you're gonna tell me that Jake Sullivan didn't know? That Jen Psaki didn't know?
Well, I'll tell you, Jen Psaki was given her own show, and by the second episode, she lost 60% of her viewership. And
she's unbearable.
I was retouching one of my old postcards, and I had YouTube on, and somehow it was a clip. Okay, it was somebody playing a Jen Psaki clip. So I could hear Jen Psaki, and then I could hear like this whiny old man who was whining about capitalism. And he sounded familiar. So my screen was filled with my photo retouching screen. So I was just listening. So I clicked onto the tab, and it was Jen Psaki talking to Jon Stewart. And here's Jon Stewart, and he's an old man. He's a cranky, whiny old man who hates capitalism now. And he's supposed to be a stand-up comedian.
He never was a comedian as far as I'm concerned. He was always an asshole.
Well, he was like this comedian named Charlie Callis, where he was just kind of going, and it was like, and he would, all his little political jokes and everything were all super bad faith. They were all bad faith jokes. And now he's all serious, and he's all sad, and leftists, they when they do their videos now, they all do them like this. So they have these brutal close-ups, and it's like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And here's Jen Psaki and Jon Stewart, and it's only their heads, their faces. And she's trying to be all hip and snarky, and he's almost going to cry over how terrible capitalism is.
Yeah.
And it was just like,
poor darling, he can't afford a good, decent living. Capitalism has been so bad to him.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, it's ridiculous. But see, what people don't know is that leftism had been losing its influence for decades. Then Obama came along and he gave it a big shot in the arm. And now leftism is back on course for losing its influence.
I think we have to ridicule it until the end of time.
Of course.
And there is a trend around the planet. We've discussed this a couple of times. Tomorrow, with any luck, our friend George Simeon is going to be elected president of Romania. Pay attention to that. Because if he gets anything short of 60%, they robbed him blind.
Well, the Europeans are very open about essentially illegally prohibiting conservatives from running.
No, they did that with Carlin Georgescu, Simeon's predecessor. He won the election, they annulled the election. They called for new elections, he was leading, they banned him. And all of these at the prompting of the European Commission. The same thing is going on in Poland now, where the socialists stole the last election and got a socialist in there. And now they have the presidential election and they can't win. So what do? The European Commission is interfering. Obama is campaigning for the socialist. You know, by the way, if they had to put Obama out of hiding to go campaign in fucking Poland, they must be in trouble. And tomorrow, Simeon is going to kick ass. Really kick ass. And now we're going to have another one to join Orban and Meloni. And all of a sudden, the face of Europe begins to switch, which I think should happen. And that fucking imbecile in England who got to here, and indeed his popularity is negative right now. They have to go to France to find somebody who likes him. All of a sudden, he changes tack and it's talking against illegal immigration. Think about that for a second. The Labour Party Prime Minister is saying that we're going to send them all back. All of a sudden, he sounds more extreme than Trump.
Well, the Europeans are insane because they don't know why they do what they do. They don't know why they're importing all these third worlders who we're never going to assimilate. They don't know why they're trying to destroy all their farming ability. They don't know why they've been destroying their industry since the end of World War II. They don't know why they do stuff, but they just do it. And
sometimes because the Pope
and the whole time they've got an eye on the U.S. to criticize us for what we're doing for ourselves. We're not even impacting Britain or Germany or whatever, except to buy their crap. And all they do is complain about us.
Yeah, they've been living off of us for the past 60 years or 70. Actually, 80. I'm sorry. I was short 10 years. But anyway.
I saw...
Yeah.
Okay, Trump has said that he's open to the idea of removing all our troops from Europe. But I watch these two idiots foam at the mouth over that because they're idiots and they don't understand that this is how Trump begins his negotiations. He says, I'm going to lasso the moon and I'm going to pull it down and land it in Paris. And everybody goes, oh my God, he's crazy. And that's his first offer. And then, the French come up and say, how about you not lasso the moon? We'll cut tariffs, and he goes, okay, good. It's a deal. Let's shake on it.
Uh, I is saying this is very, very keen observation. The funny part about Starmer's deathbed conversion is that the people he's trying to appeal to don't believe him. And the people who supported him are now angry.
Yeah.
Eh, Yeah, I think it's a big miscalculation on his part too.
Well, it's like
Eh,
that nitwit Canadian. He like managed to alienate every single person in his entire country.
because he didn't like Trump.
Yeah.
More on that one. I don't know if there is a political future for that one, though everything is possible in Canada. But it sounds less and less likely. Less and less likely.
Well, look at the Canadians. First, they re-elect Trudeau, and then they throw him out. And it's like, but Trudeau
And,
never
and,
changed.
and then they elect Trudeau 2.0.
Yeah. Trudeau never changed. He was the same all the way through. And the people were like, we love you. We love you. We hate you. We hate you. And it's just like,
What did we do? Can we get a clone now?
yeah.
Morons, all of them. All of them. Somebody asked me in another show what I thought about Alberta declaring independence and asking to join the US. I said, no fucking way. They can, join the Inuit nation for all I care.
No, we don't need a whole wad of Canadians voting in our elections.
Electing 2 senators.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you want a whole bunch of Canadians sending 2 senators to Washington? No way, Jose. I wish the best to the people of Alberta, but no dice. Maybe they can join Greenland.
And Baluchistan.
Oh, Baluchistan. Yeah, Baluchistan. Why not? That's a new vibrant country, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know that I think that the Indians are going to accept an exchange of ambassadors with Baluchistan just to piss off the Pakistanis further.
Yeah.
They're going to do this. They're very mean people,
No, Indians, they're vegetarians, but you never pick a fight with an Indian. Ever.
No, they don't let go. They're like the Rottweilers of mankind. Can we make Alberta part of Puerto Rico? What the fuck have the poor Albertas done that you want to so punish them?
Alberta, Puerto Rico, Greenland, and Baluchistan could all join together to form one country.
The United States of bullshit. Carney ran and won on TDS. No, that's not true. Because Poil de Lièvre, that is a play of words, Polièvre, Poil de Lièvre, the hare's hair. Polièvre was running on TDS as well.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody won on TDS. Everybody was running on TDS.
Well, Trump said that Poilievre hates Trump more than I always forget his name. You always remind me. Who the hell is running Canada now? Carney, yeah. So Trump said that Poilievre hates Trump more than Carney did. So
yeah, I think you would need a very precise equipment to measure that. Have the retards in Barcelona joined the party too? Why not? Because I would not impose the retards of Barcelona upon anybody. Thomas, you're gonna love this one. Today they had the Eurovision contest. You heard about that?
Yes, I used to watch it all the time.
I don't, because I always think the songs are shit and it's tacky as hell, and I don't watch it. And all the songs are identical. All the songs are made with fucking cookie cutters. And that's it. One of the contestants that has been quite um, contested is an Israeli woman who survived October 7th, was then a hostage in Gaza, survived the ordeal, and now is at Eurovision. So a bunch of people asked for a boycott because we don't want uh, genocidal maniacs in Eurovision. I said they tolerate the Germans. So there was a big hullabaloo. Some of the people who were asking for the banishment of the Israeli was the Spanish government.
Mhm.
A bunch of seriously fucked up anti-Semites. And of course, it didn't happen. So now they started with the songs and the presentations, and the state-owned TV in Spain, just before the Israeli was to sing, would put signs. Human rights demands an end of the genocide in Gaza. To the point that the organization of Eurovision is fining the Spanish TV for all of this bullshit. Then all of the socialists in the government of Spain started, campaigning against her because genocide, blah, 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 bullshit. I joined a group of very nice people there who are not socialists. And we started pushing for first of all, confronting these assholes. Every time a Spanish deputy or minister said something about Israel, I would put a short video of October 7th. Your partners approve of your message. And the thing went into asking Spaniards to vote for the Israeli singer. Would you believe she won in Spain hands down, and that was enough to push her to the second place?
Perfect.
Isn't that lovely? I hope all of those shitheads need antacids for the next 3 months after this. Can you imagine campaigning against this woman who, again, I don't like her song. She has a nice voice, by the way. But I don't like anybody's song at Eurovision. It's a style that grabs me the wrong way. Can't. There's no originality. There is no genius. It's the same box good. And they jumped at her like fucking hyenas. Instead of realizing what that woman went through to get there and how incredibly unlikely that was 2 years ago.
Well, they realize it, but they just don't care. They do realize it. They are fully aware, but they don't care. None of these people care. The only thing they're upset about is that the Israelis have not stopped fighting back since October 7th. They don't care about Palestinians. But see, okay, I used to watch these guys, and they said that the Israelis would drop 2,000-pound bombs on a single bicyclist. Now, I mean, this is retarded. the 2,000-pound bombs that the Israelis use are guided munitions. They're very expensive.
Yeah.
What the Israelis use
and they're bunker busters.
They're bunker busters. They dropped those on Hassan Nasrallah. Is they hit him with 80 2,000-pound bombs. But what they use on a bicyclist is a blast effect munition called a mikol, and it's about 2.5 feet long. So when you see the video of it, it looks like a camera flash. A camera flash. It goes poof, and usually they aim for the head, and it's also a guided munition. And the blast effect makes the guy's brains come out of his head holes, and there's no collateral damage whatsoever. The Israelis have fought this entire war with low yield munitions, except when they need to bring down a whole building. And when they do bring down a whole building, they do the knock on the roof. They give people an hour and a half to get the hell out of the building. And and then at the end of the day, this is a war. This is an existential war. So there are going to be Palestinian civilians killed, but that's what happens in war. Civilians get killed, and Trump is.
And if one of the armies does nothing but use civilians as a shield, so fuck it.
Well, the reason I didn't. I haven't followed the body count in Gaza because I did it in 2014, and the end result was out of 2,200 dead, I was able to prove that 2,100 were combatants. So, I don't give a shit about the numbers that are being put out. If it's 50,000, then 49,999 are combatants, because the Palestinians use 5-year-olds as combatants. So if you're going to win the war,
they use them as shields.
There's a book called Lighter Than a Feather, and it's a novel written by a war veteran, a World War II veteran. And it's the invasion of the Japanese home islands. The book is written from the standpoint, the novel is written from the standpoint that the atomic bombs didn't exist and the invasion of the home islands had to happen. And there's this scene where a tank column is advancing, and all of a sudden all these midgets come out and start running at the tanks. And the commander is standing in his hatch, and he's going, what is going on? They're sending midgets against us. Well, they weren't midgets. They were little kids with explosives tied to them. So he told his gunners, you have to kill him. And they're like, I don't want to kill little kids. And it's like, then we're going to get blown up. So they had to machine gun the little kids. And in Gaza, they use 5-year-olds as combatants. And if the 5-year-old...
Not for long. Let me show you something here. You know what that is?
No.
Operation Gideon Chariots is underway. See the little green area in the right next to the Egyptian border?
Yeah.
Okay. Right now, Israeli tanks have entered from the north. They're taking all of the civilians, they're taking them to that green area, and they're flying them out.
Mm-hmm.
Literally.
Mm-hmm.
Civilians get to be flown out of Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
Hamas holes get to be buried in Gaza. The end game has begun.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the time this is done, there will be no 5-year-olds fighting. The fortunate ones will be taken on a plane someplace else. Some people told me today Libya, but I doubt it.
No, Libya is still involved in a civil war.
Oh, they just had a little dust up again. because every time it looks like they're finding an accommodation, boom, something blows up.
Okay, that dates back to 2011, and it was the brainchild of Barack Hussein Obama.
Wasn't it the brainchild of Healy?
Of who?
Hilarita.
Okay, that war was fought under the concept of responsibility to protect, known as R2P, which was a rationale that was invented by this redheaded scarecrow. Obama made her the ambassador to the UN. I forgot her.
Samantha Powers.
Samantha Power. Yeah.
When you said scarecrow, I knew it because she is a fucking scarecrow.
Yeah, and Samantha Power said that the U.S. may have to invade Israel in order to protect the Palestinians.
Yeah, she did.
She did say that. And that war, the war fought against Gaddafi, was the first and last R2P war, because the concept requires that we go in, we overthrow the leader who's genociding his people, and then we immediately leave all those people to their own devices. And Libya ended up in a civil war since the year 2011. And the first thing all the freed Libyans did was they murdered all the black people in Libya. That was the first thing they did.
Yep. Somebody says here, might the Gazans be sent to Lebanon? No! The first time that the Palestinians went to Lebanon, they started the civil war that's lasting to this day.
Yeah.
And the Lebanese would probably execute each and every Palestinian arriving in Lebanon today.
Yeah, it's true. They would come off they would come off the ramp of the C-17 and they would be shot one by one.
One by one. Then they'll use their skin for billfolds and sell them at the beach. No, it's not going to happen. Not Lebanon. Poor Lebanese. Finally, after the near extermination of Hezbollah, they're beginning to have a chance at having a country again. And you want to send Palestinians there?
The good thing about the Middle East is that the Gulf Arabs are willing to help everyone in the area, such as the Lebanese and the Syrians, and just basically what Trump was talking about is make Syria great again, make Lebanon great again, and
that's precisely the reason why I want to parachute the Palestinians on Paris.
Well, that's the thing. Is like if the Europeans, the Irish are so in love with the Palestinians, send them to Ireland.
County Cork. They can go over there, and you know what? I would dress them all in green with little green bowler hats, and send them in singing.
Oh, Danny Boy.
Oh, perfect. I was thinking Tipperary. Yeah, oh, Danny Boy is even better, and fuck you all. Yeah, I would definitely do that. Why castigate Arab countries and Muslim countries that are beginning to come out of the dark ages and are trying to improve themselves by throwing this shit on them? There's a lot of talk here. By the way, Witkoff is back from Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Remember all the stuff that was being commented on what Witkoff was doing, and he was going to do another Obama agreement with Iran, and he was going to let them continue to enrich uranium. That was all bullshit. No shit. Imagine that. I'm so glad that I gave them the benefit of the doubt. The Iranians have refused to end their
enrichment,
nuclear capable missile program and enrichment, and therefore no dice. Unfortunately, it is my duty to communicate to everybody that the peace effort in Iran has failed. No shit. There's going to be many a disappointed fifth column non-interventionist in the MAGA movement when they see what's going to happen next. I believe it hasn't happened yet because the Israelis are already bombing the living fuck out of Hodeida again today, 15 planes, and evacuating Gaza. But I would say that exactly 15 seconds after the last Gazan is taken out of Khan Yunis, the mullahs are going to get a gift.
The Israelis at one point were fighting Hezbollah, Hamas.
All of them.
They were fighting all of them without showing any signs, and that was under all the restrictions put on him by the Biden administration.
Yes.
So, and just so people remember, in 2017, I believe it was, the Israelis rehearsed evacuating all of southern Lebanon in order to go in and take out Hezbollah. And they didn't have to do that, but they did rehearse it. So they have rehearsed the evacuation of 1.5 million plus people. And in the case of Gaza, they're not going to have to, do that anyway. But they do have the ability, and Trump is not going to stand in their way. In fact, nobody in the Middle East is going to stand in their way,
I'm old enough to remember when all the fucking idiots in the fifth column on the left were talking how Trump was sick and tired of Netanyahu.
Yeah.
That was last week.
Yeah.
And again, we called it for what it was, bullshit. It was bullshit. There's no light between Netanyahu and Trump.
Well, the thing about Trump is that he's got the ability to, the average American politician, say president, would go somewhere and have something, would come back waving his Neville Chamberlain piece of paper saying, this is our piece in our time. Trump doesn't have to do that. Trump doesn't have the requirement that he comes back with a signed, stamped, and sealed deal. He basically makes the deal and lets everybody in the country he just visited, let them, discuss it and refine it and, get back to him and all of that. Because it's like doing business with a giant cement corporation or whatever. There's lots of back and forth. And, in the case of, I remember, people were talking about how Trump was going to create another framework, whatever the fuck it was called, the JCPOA or JOCPOA or whatever it was called under Obama.
JDPOA.
Yeah. Trump was going to create another one, but it was going to be even worse. And it was like, but why are you saying that? He's never shown any sign of or inclination to do anything like that.
You know how in Arab culture, before you attack your enemy, you give him a chance.
That's all Trump is doing.
That's what he's doing. Maybe his great grandfather didn't come from Germany, but from some kind of Arab outpost.
Or he knew an Arab. He was great friends with an Arab.
Yeah, he's doing this. He's giving them a chance, and I insist. People ask me, why do you think he's doing that? And he has to do it because of of the opposition of a good deal of magatards. And he cannot afford a division before the elections. So he's going to do whatever is humanly possible. But when push comes to shove, Iran is not going to have a nuclear weapon, and Russia is not going to obtain territory by violence. Period. End of story.
Yeah, and he has to go much further than he basically has to prove that these people are never going to agree to any deal, regardless of how good it is for them.
No.
You know.
No, he's going to have a conversation with Putin 10 a.m. on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He'll come out. We had a good conversation. I like him. He's a good leader. But we had a good conversation. And then he's going to give Ukraine whatever they need.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is no way. There is no way. Putin crossed the Rubicon a long time ago. He cannot go back.
No.
He cannot push back. He cannot reduce his demands. If he does, he's dead. That's it. He painted himself into a corner.
But the funny thing is, the Russians did everything that the Nazis did except build gas chambers. And it's now down to the point, Hitler, before he went into his bunker for the last time, as the war was raging and Germany was losing, he would spend hours gazing at this architectural model of New Berlin that he had
Yes.
developed with these. It had a rotunda that was
the big boulevards and
exactly
and the stages for big demonstrations.
It had a rotunda that was like 10 times the size of ours, and
Yep.
And Putin is now spending all his time gazing at bizarre 18th century Russian maps of that show Russia as you know, the original Ukraine or whatever, you know, just
Remember Mel Brooks as Hitler playing with the world?
yeah.
Well, that's Putin today.
Yeah.
And that's what you're describing, I believe.
Yeah.
I think he's totally gaga. And he better enjoy. His life is going to be short, one way or another.
Well, I mean, okay, we didn't talk about it, but the Russian and Chinese economies are cratered. They're like sinkholes. It's incredible.
Yes.
The largest farm machinery manufacturer just announced that the Russian economy is headed into an apocalypse.
Yeah.
And this company is going to have to lay off its entire staff. Everyone.
They have no raw materials. They can manufacture nothing.
Yep.
They're sitting there, twiddling their thumbs, doing nothing.
And in China,
and you say, oh, but that's because they're saving all the raw materials for the defense industry. There's no longer a defense industry in Russia. The trains are not working. The power plants are not producing electricity. The next winter is going to be a massacre. And the numbers, the central bank is out of money, the banks are out of money. And there is so much that you can do through barter to stay afloat. The Russian economy is already tanking. And China is not far behind. They just got a reprieve from Trump. But their economy contracted 2% in the first quarter. Remember when they were going to grow at 10% or better every year forever?
Yeah. And Paul Krugman was one of the people making that claim.
Oh, yes. We should have known.
Yeah.
You know. Um, the economy shrunk. People are saying that China is selling U.S. treasuries to spite the U.S. and create problems for the U.S. bond market. They're down to 700 billion. Should we tell these folks again what 700 billion is to a 34 trillion economy?
Well, also, I mean,
it's not even a tickle.
If we were talking about movies, if you go back and you look at American movies from 2014, all these movies were made essentially, they had to be approved by the Chinese leadership, the Chinese government. And so all these movies, if they were science fiction movies, they showed that the China of the future was leading the world in technology, in space travel,
Yeah. Interplanetary colonization.
Exactly.
China declared Mars and the moon as Chinese territory.
Yeah.
Which they're going to be as successful claiming as they are with the South China Sea.
Yeah.
Not only is their economy tanking, and by the way, the only reason they're selling U.S. treasuries is because they need to inject money into the central bank or it collapses.
Yeah, and 700 billion is nothing. It's going to last.
It's going to last what a fart in a burlap bag. So no, they're Trump, by giving them a 3-month break, just save them from collapse next month. It's not going to work.
Mm-mm.
As part of the deal for the 90-day impasse, they were supposed to restart export of rare earths to the U.S. They didn't. They were supposed to what you call it. There were two things they had to do right at the beginning. Rare earths was one, and they are refusing to do it. And the other one, she just came out yesterday, and they're not doing it either. And so they're already walking back the deal they signed last week. You cannot have a deal with the communist Chinese or with communist anywhere for that. There is no crime in China, says the propaganda of the CCP. Yeah, there are no homeless in China too. Bullshit. They're sleeping on the sidewalks in Chinese cities because some workers have not collected a salary in 3 months. Others, the factories have already closed. This is going to be very interesting. And there is something here for you. Hold on. Krugman admitted China's autocracy and ability to get things done. Actually, I just mentioned that in the context of the fence. But the fact that they can do something doesn't mean they do, because after they don't have to go through a bidding process and they can bypass all of our bullshit and finance and in a limited way a factory to produce their final product, they produce shit that doesn't work.
Well, if the Chinese system is more desirable than ours, how come China isn't the most prosperous and successful country on the face of the earth?
Because they're still living in the Neolithic. Faisal, salam alaikum, Habibi. He says he just found Khamenei's post on X. Due to the determination of the nations of the region, the U.S. must and will leave West Asia. Delusional as usual. Delusional as usual. By the way, I do like every now and then when we talk about Khamenei. I love this photo of him. Let me see what you think. Yeah.
Hey, oh God. Look at all those poor little brides.
Look at this aging pederast. All of these girls are going to be fucked for the equivalent of $50 by an asshole who's going to marry her for 20 hours. So that, it's legal sex. It's between husband and wife.
Okay, who's on Iran's side?
Right.
The U.S. must leave West Asia, and every country in the region, and now including Syria, wants the Americans to basically be involved in the area.
The only people with Khamenei, the only people standing with Khamenei are Afghanistan and China. China, because the Chinese have been taking advantage of Khamenei, and one of the bright spots in the Chinese economy is that they can buy oil at $20 per barrel.
Mhm.
And they pay with yuan, which means all Iran can do with those yuan is buy cheap shit from China. But you know what kind of money we're talking about? It's like two Walmart stores buy more shit than Iran. Two stores.
Well, did you hear that Ahmed Sarraj said that he wants to see a Trump Tower in Damascus?
He did say that a long time ago. He's repeating it. I think he really wants a Trump Tower in Damascus. That is going to be interesting. It may be that he saw the light, just like Biden, and he's walking towards the light, just like Biden, except that Sarah's light is of a philosophical nature, and Biden's light is just a searchlight.
Yeah, Biden's light is like, my brother and I were remembering, my father got it into his head that halogen lamp lights were the way to go. And we have these floor lamps, and they have open tops. They look like this, like a bowl. And my father put this halogen light in it. And if you don't know anything about halogen lights, the reason they were discontinued is because they get up to like 1,200 degrees. So
they get out of shit.
And
by the way, today you can replace a 50-watt halogen with a 5-watt LED, and it's cool.
No, this fly was zooming around, and it flew right into the open top halogen lamp, floor lamp. And there was this buzzing, and then this little trail of smoke came up, and then the whole room stank of roasted fly. And it was just like, okay, what are flies going for when they fly into the light? Like maybe we should ask Biden, why do flies head for the light?
I'd give anything for Biden to go onto a halogen lamp.
No, it was.
I'll bet you 10-1. It's gonna smell like roasted chicken.
We had to open every window in this. That one little fly stank up the whole house, and it was just. It was the stupidest thing I'd ever seen. He just flew directly into the halogen light and fried his little fly head. But it was just like, God Almighty, I'll never forget that. We have LEDs now, and they're cool to the touch.
Yep, and I was also referring to the propaganda campaign. Have you noticed all the messages on Twitter and social media and Instagram from the Chinese embassy and the Russian embassy?
Mm-hmm.
They're playing with fire.
Mm-hmm.
Embassies are not supposed to interfere in the internal affairs of the host country.
When you're walking the plank, I guess you don't really think about the niceties of
Yeah, I think it's a sign of desperation.
Yeah.
They're desperately trying to modify public opinion, and it has the opposite effect. They turn out to be like a parody of themselves.
Well, okay, you and I have talked a lot about released documents that don't show anything, like the JFK assassination documents and, et cetera, et cetera. In 2020, I remember when Minnesota was under siege, was Twinkle Tim, was Tim Walz the governor at the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. So first he refused help from the feds.
Yes.
Then he gave a press conference and he said that international, essentially terrorists
were invading Minnesota.
Exactly. And so the feds went in, and that didn't really get any coverage. And then there was this YouTube, this clip that somebody filmed. At some point, Antifa tore down the fences. Okay, at the White House, of course, they have the giant black fence that can't be pulled down, but they had a temporary fence in front of it, and Antifa tore that down. And there was a guy with a megaphone screaming orders in Mandarin, and that was clear. That was filmed.
Yes,
he was dressed completely in black. He was screaming orders in Mandarin, and I think that a hell of a lot of stuff has happened in this country due to our so-called adversaries, and I've never understood the need to keep it under wraps. I've always thought that it should be exposed immediately. When the Mexicans were using the Mexican army to protect drug shipments into the U.S.,
yep,
I always thought, since the Mexicans said, "Oh, it's not our army, it's drug smugglers who've stolen uniforms," I always thought we should have blown up their Humvees and said, "Hey, you said it wasn't you guys,"
Well, that's exactly what the U.S. did to Argentina in 1932.
Yeah.
With that asshole Vernet,
mm-hmm.
who was stealing cargo from American whalers, and he claimed to be the Argentine governor of the Falklands. And when the U.S. protested, the Argentine government told them, "Governor, we don't have the governor. I don't know who the fuck he is. He's a pirate." So they turned around and bombed the living fuck out of Burnett. And when the Argentine government said, "What the fuck did you do?" Well, this is how we deal with pirates.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they were not pirates and they were your people, there's still the question of reparations to our whalers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, that's okay. Fine, no problem. Just bye. And that was the end of it. If Mexico claims those people are not Mexican army, but essentially cartel members who stole the uniforms, kill them all.
That's what I think.
Kill them all. And when Mexico comes back and says, "What did you do?" Well, this is how I deal with terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
You told me they weren't yours.
Mm-hmm.
And you see how quickly they fold. The Botox queen, that's what they call Sheinbaum now, the president of Mexico, because apparently she was tired of looking at her sagging skin and got enough Botox to now look like Nancy Pelosi. And she's authorized American forces to cross the border and operate with some Mexican forces in Jalisco. Let's see what happens there. Oh, good. The University of Washington, at the University of Washington, protesters demand that the university cut ties with Boeing. They're going to boil them in soap before they cut ties with Boeing, you freaking idiots. I hope they take all of this bullshit to the very limits. because they're not going to succeed at all.
No.
Somebody says that with halogen lamps you can heat a room. Listen, in my restaurant I used to have all halogen lamps. When I changed them all for LEDs, the use of the air conditioner dropped 30%.
Yep.
It was ridiculous. I had an enormous savings in electricity. Like I say, 50 watts replaced by 5. And and the AC got a break.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. We had a little tete-a-tete with the Russian battalion getting wiped out, just like that, not too long ago. Indeed, 5 years ago. A little bit more now. Persia is not really Persian. It contains also large different ethnic groups: Kurds, Azeris, Lurs, Paluchs, Arabs, Turkmen, and Jews. There is a very large Jewish population in Iran, certainly more than any European country today. Lead have problems with color rendition. No, it's just a little on the blue side, which, by the way, it's great. You know why it's great? Because it is a little on the blue side instead of a little on the red side, and blue does not attract insects.
Mm.
So a lot of people put these yellow lamps on their porch or something to keep the insects away.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Replace it with the brightest fucking LED you can find, and you're gonna have white light, and you're gonna be able to see what you're doing, and you're gonna be free from moths and insects of all kinds because blue light does not attract insects. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah, my brother's his bedside lamp burned out, and the only replacement bulb we had in the kitchen was a yellow bug lamp bulb. So he went and he put that in his bedside lamp, and he decided he liked it. So he kept this yellow bug lamp light in his bedroom until it finally burned out. But it was just really, really eerie, the yellow light in that room.
Yeah, very. Kelly's asking, who are the Persians? The Persians are the people who got royally fucked by the Greeks 3,000 years ago. There are no Persians today. There are very few Aryans, too, even though Iran means the land of the Aryans.
Mm-hmm.
But there are very few Aryans, too. It's a hodgepodge of, I mean, that place is a crossroads of civilizations. Everybody and their mother had been fucking everybody else for 5,000 years. If anybody thinks that there is a distinct race or characteristic, oh, please. Oh, please. The Zoroastrians are probably the only ones that at least culturally can trace back to the times of Parthia. But like I say, culturally, because everybody was screwed by everybody else. Who's really a Roman and who's really a descendant of a Teutonic tribe? We're all descendants of both, baby. Because when the Romans were not screwing the German tribeswomen, the German tribesmen were screwing the Roman women. And in the end, we're all mixed up. People forget that, you know.
Yeah.
We have this idea of the nation state, and this is France, this is Germany, which is the day before yesterday that it started. Because all of these things did not exist as such 300 years ago. Aquitaine was neither French nor English, though at times the lords of Aquitaine submitted to the King of England, and at times to the King of France, and at other times to the King of Navarre. And it was neither Spain nor France nor England. And the same thing with every territory in Europe. We're all cousins, baby. Now, let me do a message before we go for the last segment. I've left the sign there, people. As you, many of you know, we have no source of income for maintaining these programs and these channels and the forum than whatever you can give us. We collect no money from USAID. The Democratic Party told me to go fuck myself. Well, not really, because I didn't ask. But they would. We have no advertising. We collect no data from our users or our viewers. And whatever you want to send us, if you want to buy us a cup of coffee, please do. Right under the description of this video in Odyssey and in YouTube, you can see the two links. One is this one, quadverum.com/support. As you can make there a one-time contribution or start a monthly contribution. And the other one, if you're on X in particular, you can subscribe to @TheBrotherLie. The link is there too. So please do send us a $5 or something. It's not even a coffee in Starbucks. Not that I like Starbucks coffee, mind you, but just to give you an idea. And that's it. That's all I'm going to say about Mullah today. Please do. The Cornish peoples migrated from northern Spain. Yes, indeed, Celts. The north is heavily Viking. Yes, indeed. Plus some Celts and a few others. The south is Angles and Saxons, really Utes and Frisians. Scotland and the original Celtic peoples who got pushed north is a real mix. Yes, indeed. The Albans and they've been fucking each other in England for something like 5,000 years. I think you have to go to a tiny little town in the Highlands to find somebody who hasn't been mixed with the rest of them.
Yeah, when I one summer I went to Sweden. Was it Sweden? Was that the summer? No, it was the summer I got my my passport stolen in Yugoslavia, and I didn't sleep all the way from Yugoslavia back to Stavanger, Norway. So on the train headed towards Stavanger, I was so tired I was hallucinating. And there was a family there from the Dutch province of Friesland. And Friesland is essentially Middle English, Frieslandish. So there was one of the women was a monologist. She wouldn't stop talking. And it was incredibly close to modern English, but not quite. So in my hallucinatory state, I almost understood her, but not quite. But it was so close that it was making me want to.
You could almost imagine it.
Yeah, no, and she had a very weird voice. Her voice, she sounded like a wasp trapped inside a paper envelope. So she was like, so then I go and I say that it's for this, and then of course, and I had to listen to this for like 10 hours. And by the end of it, I was so traumatized that when I heard Frieslandish spoken recently, and I was suddenly back on that train, you know, exhausted, with my horrible handmade passport and having escaped from the Yugoslavian secret police just by virtue of luck or God or whatever. And apparently I saw a Middle English scholar went to Friesland and he had a conversation with an old farmer and they both understood each other.
Of course. People, we call them Anglo-Saxons.
Mm-hmm.
They don't come from Saxony, or rather, they didn't come from Saxony, and they didn't come from Anglia. They came from Frisia, and they were Frisians and Utes. From the Frisians from today's Holland, and the Utes from southern Denmark today, and that's it. And the language is Frisian, Old English. When probably that woman sounded very similar to Geoffrey Chaucer.
Yeah. No, I mean, I had to once. I was a voice recording artist in Japan, and I had to do an article on the Canterbury Tales. So I had to learn how it was all pronounced, and that's Middle English. It's at least slightly comprehensible. Once you get to Old English,
Old English bucket. No, that's just proficient. My favorite line in the Canterbury Tales: "He knew the taverns well in every town," describing the monk. He knew the taverns well in every town. You already know everything you needed to know about the stupid monk. It's synthesis elevated to the sublime. I made myself once a T-shirt of a monk with a beer mug, and the legend, "He knew the taverns well in every town." When I went to Northern England, people were cracking up every time they saw. So anyway, I had something else that I wanted to throw by you. It happens to me sometimes. I see that everybody in the chat is now giving us their full genealogy, and I was right. They're all mutts. In this world, we are all mutts. Anybody who comes to you with any kind of racial purity bullshit is a moron and an ignoramus.
Well,
we're all mutts.
I'm a Mexican German Luxembourgish, and I think I've got Welsh and English, but it doesn't matter to me because, I mean, I feel no great, no desire to go visit Wales, for example. I have no desire. No desire to go back to Mexico. I went once, and that was enough. And that was 40 years, close to 50 years ago. So 50 years ago, Mexico was at least, you weren't going to be coming back home with a bullet in your head. But today, no way would I go.
Now, 50 years ago, even 40, 30 years ago, Mexico was a great place. Mexico City is a fascinating city. The gardens, the architecture, the cultural life. A city of contrasts, if you will. Big ones, but also a city of great beauty. And I used to love strolling through the Alameda or Reforma or Parque Chapultepec. I used to really love it. I haven't been there since 2004. That was the last time I went to Mexico. It's not worth the risk anymore. And I know there are millions of Mexicans who live and work there every day, but they develop their own methods for survival. I stick out like a sore fucking thumb. And I don't know the codes anymore. So why should I worry at all? I'd rather go to York.
Mm-hmm.
So, how much of Mexico City's architecture is Mexican versus Spanish? There is no Mexican, it's all Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever there was of left of Tenochtitlan is buried. They discovered in the 2000s the old temples buried under the cathedral, so they made a little hole and you can take a look at it. But it was the Spaniards who built Mexico City, and anything else is pure bullshit. Why America, Faisal? Why America doesn't take over Mexico and Central America? Fuck no!
For the same reason Saudi Arabia didn't take over Syria and Gaza.
Yeah. I mean, Faisal, you want all the Philistine from Gaza and Judea and Samaria? We can send them to Jeddah tomorrow morning if you want them. Really freakish. No, hell no. Can you imagine, Thomas?
No.
If those people were sending representatives to our Congress? I mean, we're in bad shape. But come on.
No.
We still might take back the Panama Canal. Not unless it is absolutely necessary, my dear. We can have the Panamanians handle it. By the way, notice how just a veiled threat that we might take it back, and all of a sudden they threw the Chinese out.
Yeah. No, because they know that our president doesn't kid around.
They pushed the Chinese over the ledge. It's okay. No. Don't fuck around. We get rid of the Chinaman. And that was the end of it.
Yep.
And that was the end of it. They're stupid, but not that stupid. Geez. There was a debate about taking over all of Mexico after the Mexican-American War. Yeah, it lasted all of 5 seconds. And I'm not going to start with that, but Americans did not want to bring in that mass of Latins into the fold. Yeah. Oh no, actually, you're saying that they couldn't stomach all the Catholics there. Yeah, that is true. I was offered to invest in Baja, says Faisal. Faisal, my brother, find out whoever told you to invest in Baja and punch him in the face. He's not your friend. He's your enemy. Run away. Would you invest in any place in Mexico, Thomas?
No, because a few years ago, there were all these retirees who were in Baja, and suddenly the Mexican government announced that all their retirement homes, which they'd had built, were now property of the Venezuelan or of the Mexican government, and they had to leave, and that was the end of it. There was nothing anybody could do.
No. By the way, somebody says Cabo is okay. No, Cabo is not okay. Anywhere in Mexico, you have no guarantees. You have no rights whatsoever when it comes to property. All you need is one Mexican government official who likes your property.
Exactly.
Or one cartel guy who likes your property.
Yeah.
Then the property is theirs or you're dead. You don't fucking do it. If the cartels don't get you, the government will.
Well, there's no difference. There's no qualitative difference between the cartels and
No,
the government.
no, no, no. It's two sides of the same coin. So screw that. No investing in Mexico, Habibi. Period. End of story. No talk about the number 86. What can I say? That Comey is a fucking imbecile.
Yeah, I mean, they're all saying, "Oh, he." I mean, all they have to do.
He was sending coded messages for an insurrection. I'll keep it. Do you think that they need to do that? If there are people preparing an assassination of President Trump, do you think they need a signal in Instagram of a picture with shells?
No, I mean, he knew exactly what he was doing, but he wasn't sending a coded message to anyone.
No.
He was just being a pathetic, childish dick.
He was being a pathetic, childish dick, creating a controversy just as he's about to release his new book.
Yeah.
So when nobody even remember who the fuck Comey was, he's releasing a book, nobody knows who he is, so he does something stupid to be in the newspaper. I mean, talk about free publicity. And that's all there is to it. I can't believe that we, no vacation home in Cocoyoc? No, fuck that. You want a vacation home? Go to the Redneck Riviera. You know, Thomas, do you know the Redneck Riviera?
No.
The Florida Panhandle coast.
Oh.
We call it affectionately the Redneck Riviera. In fact, when you're when you come off the interstate to go to Panama City Beach,
mm-hmm.
The first building you'll see after several miles of nothing but wilderness, the first building is Bubba's Diner.
Wow.
Then you know you have arrived at the Redneck Riviera. It is beautiful. The weather is unbelievable. The sea is so it's Gulf waters, so clear, so clean, of a light bluish color, with talcum powder white beaches and white beaches too. You know, both kinds, and in the morning, you have breakfast in the balcony, watching the dolphins swim and do funny things that dolphins do. You know, they jump out of the water and all that jazz. So you get a show in the morning for free, courtesy of the dolphins. The beach is wonderful. The restaurants are great. And you know what? You can leave your fucking door open in some of the cities around there. To the west of Panama City Beach is that city where that movie, what was the movie? With that stupid Canadian asshole that they're filming his life until he realizes his life is a set.
Oh, Jim Carrey.
Yes. That little town that he walks around actually exists. It's not a set.
The Truman Show was the name of the movie.
The Truman Show, yes. In the Truman Show, that little town where he lives, that quaint little 1950s town, actually exists. And it is about a half an hour west of Panama City Beach. And then you have, you know, a bunch of nice little towns and cities. In Pensacola, I wouldn't leave the door open, but in some of the towns, yes. And the locals are wonderful. The South American tourists have not discovered this, and because there are no tomato or strawberry plantations, all of the pickers are not there either. It's wonderful. It's fucking wonderful. So remember, you were telling me, Thomas, that you don't want to travel to foreign lands anymore.
Mhm.
That if you travel at all, it, this is better than the Caribbean. Easier to get to. In your case, just hop on I-10,
Mhm.
and eventually you'll get here. I-10 is Interstate 10 is precisely the interstate by the Redneck Riviera. So all you do is you hop on I-10 in Los Angeles and stay on that road until you get to Pensacola, Panama City Beach, and all the towns in between. It's cheap.
Mhm.
You can get a great hotel room for $60. What can I say? Yes, every 30 years or so, a hurricane will hit. In other places, it will be a tornado, lightning, earthquakes, forest fires. Who gives a shit? Happens everywhere. Um, Destin is between Pensacola and Panama City.
Mm.
It's a beautiful town. Um, Deb says it's so expensive now. Only a specific area on the beach. A friend of mine sold a two-bedroom apartment that used to be his parents for $60,000 not long ago. You still find deals, and you still find uh, pretty decent hotel deals in Dustin. So anyway, um, and by the way, they used to have a problem with spring break at one time
Mhm.
until drunken northeastern students on a binge found out that you don't fuck with Baba. The police would literally cart them, knock them down, and take them on wheelbarrows to the paddy wagon. All of a sudden, they stop having uh, uh, um, spring break parties in Panama City Beach. Imagine that. Now everybody's happy. Where am I? I'm being asked, where am I? Right now, I am in uh, Hardyville, South Carolina. Exactly the place where God would stick the hose if he wanted to give the world an enema. Turquoise water here, white sugar sand beaches. Yes, indeed. Um, I mean, it is fantastic. And I don't understand why people would travel halfway around the world to go to a beach when they have this here. Literally. And the toilet works. Mm. You won't be too far from a Buc-ee's. Well, no, you're not. Um, my uncle used to live there. He loved it. Yeah. No, it is. This country is a continent. Every style, every physiognomy. Do you want mountains? Do you want the beach? Do you want prairies? Do you want cities? Whatever you want, you're going to find in the US. Why are you going to fight with the fucking cartel guys in fucking Cozumel? Not too long ago, the cartels took the ferry that went from the town of Cozumel to the beach and killed a bunch of people. Why would you want to be there? So don't. Anyway, did we leave anything out? Just to round up, Thomas, you can help me with this a little bit, but we did say we did say a what you call it,
What?
a sea change ongoing.
Yes.
Everything that we've been talking today is the expression of a major, major freaking change in the relations of power in the world.
Correct.
This is no small thing. The European Union is changing. The Middle East is changing. China is about to lose the train. There's going to be changes in South America. There's something coming in about 2 months, but there are more urgent matters. But Venezuela is not going to have Maduro for long, and there are changes planned for Cuba as well. Trump is resetting the world in a way that is safer for everybody and better for business for everybody. I don't know if the Emir of Qatar is going to be intelligent enough to embrace the possibility that Trump just gave him and walk into the light. Maybe he's an imbecile and he tries to play both sides again. It would be a bad idea. Not too long ago, Saudi Arabia was ready to cut off the Qatari Peninsula. They began to build a nuclear waste site. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Right on the Qatari side of the channel, the sense of beaches. They built the channel 3 miles from the Qatari border. So there was this 3 miles of no man's land between Qatar and the channel, and that's where they started building the nuclear waste site. Frankly, when the Saudis get pissed at you, they get pissed at you. There's no halfway about it. And they gave Qatar 13 points that the Qataris had to fulfill if they were to rejoin the Gulf community and the Arab world. To stop dealing with Iran, to stop financing terrorism, to close down Al Jazeera. Remember that?
Uh-huh.
Well, guess what they just promised to do?
All those things.
Yeah. So what happens if they keep dealing with Iran? Trump is not going to be the only one upset. Mohammed bin Salman would be really pissed off. And when you piss off these two in that area, you're not going to be doing too well. So I hope for the Qataris that they truly join the community of nations. There has to be a talk with the Kuwaitis too.
Mm-hmm.
We saved their asses, and they still became hosts for Al Qaeda,
Mm-hmm.
and they still looked the other way and washed their money. They needed a little talking to.
Mm-hmm.
But it is going to be done, and people get too impatient. A friend of mine was getting too impatient because he felt like Trump surrendered to China last week.
Ugh.
And I said, no, why? He eliminated the tariffs. No, China still has a 30% tariff. Yeah, but that's not much. Okay. What was the tariff on Chinese products 2 months ago? Nothing. So Trump threatens 140. The Chinese are scared enough that they start promising, okay, we're going to take care of the fentanyl. Come and talk. They talk. The Chinese promised to take care of the fentanyl. By the way, they haven't done it yet. And Trump lowers the tariffs to 30%, but it's already 30% higher than the starting point. And everybody's happy because it's only 30%. So money's going straight into the treasury, and everybody's fucking happy. And if in 90 days China doesn't fulfill its promises, it's going back to 140, maybe 300%, depending on how Trump feels that day. And I'm okay with that, because the purpose then is going to be to break their back. We're in a world where you're going to stop financing terrorism, you're going to stop bothering your neighbors, and you're going to play ball, and we're all going to trade and be happy, or we'll destroy you. And that's the sea change that I see ongoing right now. It's not done. Anything to add to that?
No, it's I mean, Trump is proving that all this stuff that the Democrats and the establishment Republicans said couldn't be done. He's proving that it can be done. You just have to have the will to do it. So, it's all happening.
It's all happening. And by the way, I told you at one point that Biden was going to bring inflation to us.
Mm-hmm.
He did. I told you it was going to be 5 to 8%, but it was going to last about 10 months. It did. Then I told you, don't worry about inflation anymore. It's already tamed. But inflation is 6% year over year. Yeah, but last month it was 0.2%. Then I told you we're going into a recession. Then I told you we are in a recession.
Mm-hmm.
And then I told you we're coming out of a recession. Guess what? We're coming out of a recession.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Moody's only now lowers the credit rating from AAA to A plus. What's the change? Nothing. What does it mean? Absolutely nothing. Fitch and S&P did it in 2011. And have you noticed any particular change?
No.
People forget that the US dollar is as much a bond as a treasury bill. And both are backed by nothing. So these imbeciles and Moody's, well, we think with the spending there might be trouble repaying the loans. Go fuck yourself. We print the money out. There are other problems in long term, but not that one. This is a political move by the shithead socialists at Moody's, and it means nothing. It's going to have zero effect. There might be a day or two of a little trading in the bond market, and then it's going to settle. And prepare, babies, because with the recession over and trade restarting in about a month or two, before the end of the summer, you're going to be so fucking happy. I can tell you.
True.
And the other thing that is going to put a smile on your face is Tom Home is busy. He's busy. He's deporting illegals faster than the Democrats can start lawsuits against him.
Mm-hmm.
There are 3 flights out of Colorado by the Coast Guard almost daily. And now they're going into the cities. I can't tell you which day they're going to start, and I won't say here what cities. Although I believe I told you, Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I told you. You are my warrantor. I'm not going to say it over here because I don't want to. By the way, when I got to the hotel today, I was running because I was late. I got to the hotel at 11, and there were all of these Mexican-looking fellows,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like Pueblo, looking fellows with smelling of cologne, with uh, gel in their hairs and all that jazz. And they were all waiting in the elevators. And I went around. As I was coming around, I started, "Watch out, la migra!" I could take the elevator immediately. They ran through the back door.
Wow.
And I hope they don't see me again. I swear to God, I was cracking up on the elevator because it cut at least 10 minutes of wait. Watch out, la migra! It's gonna be that time again. Okay. And with China, I know Trump wants to deal,
Mhm.
and he's gonna make his effort. I believe that there is no dealing with China. You cannot have any kind of agreement with somebody who's not working in good faith.
No.
And the communists in China don't want to trade with the U.S. They want to destroy the U.S.
Yep.
It's not an adversarial but an inimical relation.
Hmm.
Every Chinese student in America is a Chinese spy. Period. Whether they want to or not. Number one, who in China has $160,000 to pay tuition, home, and room and board for a student? Nobody, just the government. So all of these people are here on the government's time. Maybe some of them think they're coming to study until they get a visit from a guy from the embassy who says, "You need to get me this research." And if they say no, they are reminded of their sister or brother or father or mother who are still in China, who may receive a visit from a thoroughly nasty character, and they will bring that research.
Yep.
Some are there because they are Chinese patriots who are willing to work hard to steal as much as they can and undermine our schools, our military, all they can. We need to throw them all back across the ocean. We cannot have American universities conducted research for our military in fucking China.
No.
And there are many American universities that are doing precisely that. They should be told unequivocally that if they don't close their operations in China, they lose their certification here and every government contract. We need to decouple from China. And
Hmm.
everything the Chinese make, we can have it done elsewhere.
Yep.
There are 8 billion people in this world, and 6 billion are cheap labor or more. So it, I got it off my chest because I see all of this talk about China and I say, what the fuck are we doing here? We cannot do that. They're our enemy. We cannot open the door to our home, to our enemy.
No.
Now, if the Chinese ever get rid of the fucking communists, then we'll talk. And that's it for me. So I already asked for Bula. Remember, guys, please use the links below or subscribe to at the Brother Line. And I'll see you tomorrow, 10:30 p.m. From Baltimore. God, Baltimore. Why the fuck am I going to Baltimore? Ugh. Uh, kiss me, the jiffies. And with Thomas again next week from home for the first time in months. So thank you, Thomas. And do you have a last word for us?
Volte-face.
Volte-face.
Mhm.
I like that one. Good night, everybody. Thank you, Thomas. And let me see. I have to get rid of this. There you go. Live long and prosper, my friend.